behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
And welcome to Autism Live. We are trying out a new platform this morning, and so I want to make all of you aware that it's going to look a little bit different. It certainly feels different to us. So we want to know what you guys think. Already we've run into a couple of snags, but we're hoping that this connection is a little bit stronger. And we're hoping that the picture is a little bit clearer and that it'll be a little bit easier for us to post information for you on the show. That's what we're looking for. But if your experience of it is not that, then, it doesn't really matter what we're looking for, right? So we're going to try this out for the next couple of days, and we're hoping to get some feedback from you guys by the end of the week to decide whether we continue, because we've been using two platforms mushed together. And now we're just trying to do it on one to see how we interface with you guys. So write in and let us know. We are going to be with you live for the next hour, and I'm really excited about that. We're still looking for your comments and your questions and your concerns. This platform also will make it easier so that there won't be as much lag. So if you guys, let's test it out right now. If you're watching the show, especially if you're on Facebook or YouTube, but also on Twitter and Periscope, if you want to send us a message right now, you could just say hello so that we can see if, in fact, the platform is working, right? It'll be a little bit more instantaneous. We think that's the goal, right? So I'm Shannon Penrod, and we are, as I said, we're live. And we're live from a room in my house. And look at that. See, we have a lower third now. That's what we didn't have before. So for those of you who are listening in podcast, you're like, what is she talking about? I have no idea what's going on. But that brings me to my next point. If you're watching us live right now, you're probably watching us on YouTube, on Periscope, on Twitter or Facebook, or you might be watching us on our live feature on autism-live.com. If you're watching or listening to us in podcasts, you might be listening to us or watching us on iTunes because you have your choice. Hey, Alicia from Oklahoma, it's working. How about that? That's very exciting. And I love it. You can't see, but it just kind of went like this into my screen. It just bounced in. Very cool. Take a look at all the things that Traven is showing you there. Those are all the different places that you can be watching and listening to us right now. So as I said, you can be watching and listening on iTunes. You get your choice. It is a free download there. We're there on Apple Podcasts now as Autism Live, on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Ghana, Amazon Music, which I'm not sure if it's completely launched yet, but when it does, we're there. Our page is ready. We're on Audible now and on Deezer. Isn't that exciting? Good job, Traven, for making all of that happen. So we hope that you will participate with us. If you're watching live, we encourage you to write in your thoughts and your questions and your concerns. If you're not watching live and you want to be writing in questions, you can write them in on the platform that you're watching. But if you're not watching live, I have to be honest, the best place for you to write those in is on our live feature, which is autism-live.com. There's a chat button. And when you write in there, it stores all of them. And I can go in and look at all the comments all at once. And I do check those on a regular basis. And that is working today. So fingers crossed. But I will tell you quite honestly, our favorite thing here is when you guys write into us. We love to interact. Even when you guys write in something that isn't necessarily flattering. I know, sometimes we will get people, the more people we have watch, the more comments that we get that are not necessarily flattering, like the folks who wrote in and told me to shut my mouth and let Temple talk when we had Temple on last Tuesday. I get it. I totally get it. And I don't take it personally, except that I try to work. And as a interviewer, sometimes I talk too much. I'm working on it. work in progress. Here I am. So anyway, we love your comments. All of them is what I'm trying to say. So please feel free, even if you feel like, oh, you're a dissenting opinion, that's okay. We recognize here that the autism community, and when we do the show, we're doing it for the largest autism community. That starts with folks that are on the spectrum. Those are the beating core of this is the heart of our autism community. But here on our show, we include everyone who loves those individuals and who is helping to fight for them to have the rights, the freedoms, and the expectation of the rights and the freedoms, for heaven's sake. We shouldn't have to fight for it, but the reality is that we do. So we don't expect for all of us to agree on much of anything. Right? It's okay for us to have different opinions, but as a group of people, there are some things that we agree on. And that is just exactly what I was saying, the rights of the individuals who are on the autism spectrum and the right to be treated fairly, to employment, to housing, to love who you love, to wear what you want to wear. You know what I'm saying? So we know that we'll agree on those things. So I'm always, especially in an election year, we band together, folks. And si se puede, we can do it. We hold hands, right? Virtually, with masks, socially distanced, but we hold hands, less, right? So please participate in whatever way that helps you. Our mission here is always to provide information and inspiration, but I think we do a better job of it when you guys tell us what you want. I always say that we have lots of experts on the show, but I'm not one of them, and I'm not even a mind reader. So please write in and tell us what it is that you want. Speaking of which, we've got a great expert who's going to be with us today, and I'm not an expert. I'm somebody who's been hosting shows from a journalistic point of view about autism for over a decade now. So, I've interviewed as many people about autism as I think anybody else on the planet has, which means that I've heard things. I think I have an informed opinion, but not an expert, right? I'm always willing to give my opinion. If you want my opinion, please feel free to write. I don't think anybody really wants my opinion. But sometimes I give it way too freely. But nonetheless, write in with whatever you want. We love to ask the experts the questions that you guys write in. And I'm always calling somebody up and going, all right, a parent asked me this. What do you want to say to that? And I enjoy being able to do that. So it's Monday. And on Monday, we like to start off with something we fondly refer to as the jargon. It's not sticking. This is very exciting. So jargon of the day is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to figure out what in the hey, nani are the experts talking about? What does this have to do with us? Do we really need to know this term? Couldn't we just say what it really is? We try to give you first the actual definition, then whenever possible, we make fun of it. And because as definitions go, the actual definitions for these things are sometimes only hilarious and not helpful. And then we give you a working definition, which hopefully is designed to give you an entree into understanding it. We don't expect that you'll understand it all the first time. It's why we cycle through these terms and go back over them. We want for you to begin to get a glimmer of it so that then when it shows up in your life and you go, oh, that's it. That's exactly what they were talking about when they said this. So our jargon term today, dun, da, da, da. I have no idea what it is. I know I sent it to you, Traven, but I have no idea what it is. We're bringing it up. Hold on. I don't know. Do I need to bring it up? I don't even remember what it was. Oh, there it is. ADA. And I don't know for sure. I think that we've covered this before on our show, but it's been a while. We probably did ADA when we had Tony Coelho on, because Tony Coelho was one of the original authors of ADA. So let's take a look at this, what our actual definition of ADA is. You ready? ADA, it's the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's a civil rights law passed in 1990 that does not allow discrimination against people with disabilities in employment, public service, and public accommodations. So that's a pretty cool thing. We've only had it since 1990, which seems a little crazy to me. But as I said, we've had Tony Coelho on before, and he was one of the original authors. Let's take a look at what our working definition for ADA is. So ADA is the law of the land currently. And I think that that's a really important thing to state, that right now, I mean, the laws are laws only until they're not laws, right? We have cultural things, ways of behaving and ways of thinking, but the law is the law. And if you have any friends that are lawyers, man, I don't get that excited about law. I get excited about ideas. But the law is the law. And when push comes to shove, I have seen many times where having the law in place has made the difference. Now, we talk about, and our jargon later on this week, we'll talk about IDEA. And a lot of times when we're talking about education, and we're going to have Bonnie Yates on later on, we'll talk about IDEA and what that means legally for our kids in the classroom. But sometimes we forget that ADA is there for us on all fronts to protect us and to protect our kiddos that are on the autism spectrum and our adults that are on the autism spectrum. That the truth of the matter is that there are protections put in place so that people cannot be discriminated against. I don't know about you, but I was so heartsick after talking to Temple Grandin last week, and somebody wrote in the question and said, in terms of work, should I disclose or not disclose? And her advice in this current environment was don't disclose, because she knows someone that recently ended up, I don't know that it was a direct correlation, but disclosed at work, and work became harder. And eventually they found themselves leaving work as a result of all the things that happened. So I don't want to say that they lost their job because they disclosed, but it was a confluence of events that started with that, is what it sounded like to me. This makes me heartsick, right? Because the law is in place to protect all of us from those kinds of circumstances. Yeah, sometimes it gets a little fuzzy, and we all know the deal, right? And I so appreciated Temple being honest, but I hate that that's the reality. I hate that and that you would then have to mount a legal case. But I will tell you that it does give me some peace knowing you could mount the legal case. And I have seen recently people fighting things in the classroom where they couldn't push it through on IDEA for various and sundry reasons. And so they switched their argument to ADA and won. So we don't want to forget that. Somebody wrote in and said, that intro sure messes with my sensory issues. However, this series is amazing. Thank you. Love how the new platform looks. Somebody else says, hello, Renee and Elvira say, hello, Shannon. I have a question for you. And then it's ... And I could see it's running all of them together. So my kindergarten son IEP is coming up, and I'm currently writing my son's present levels and having a difficult time. Any advice? Did you ever write one? What kind of things did you write? And somebody else, any suggestions regarding masks and headphones? I need my headphones, but can't wear the mask because of sensory and other issues. I got to tell you, I have a friend who works in the entertainment industry as a nail artist. She does all the manicures for stars when they're on set. And she was showing us what she's wearing on set now. And she wears a mask. She does wear a mask, but she also has this heavy duty, it was not designed to be for COVID, but this is what they are using on sets. It is a hard shell clear visor. And I struggle a little bit with the mask myself. I've built up a tolerance to it. But I have no problem putting on that visor. Before we're done, I will have somebody bring me in the visor so that you guys can see. It's not inexpensive, but I will tell you that it's worth it because I've been buying, there are different types of visors. There are ones that go over your glasses, because I wear glasses, and don't fog up. And then there are ones that come down, that flip up, and there's ones that flip down, and all these different things. So I will share a little bit about that later on. Don't let me forget. But in any case, ADA, look at that, back on track here. I'm like a squirrel. I'm like, what are they saying here? This is amazing because it's so instantaneous. So law of the land, and you do have a right to point to ADA for any time there is a circumstance in which the playing field is not just, not equal. Equal is not what we're looking for, right? We want it to be just. And so I always go back to that cartoon that It shows the three boys standing and trying to watch something happening on a track field, but there's a curtain in front of them. And the one boy is tall enough, he can see over it. The second boy, the curtain comes right here, so he can only see a little bit of what's happening. And the third boy is shorter, so he can't see anything. And that is what equality is everybody's standing there and they're all the same. But what's just is when we put an apple box underneath the boy that's in the middle so that he can see over, so that he has the same view as the boy. And then the third boy is in a taller box so that he can see everything too. And that's really what ADA is supposed to do, is to make it just, not equal, just. Okay, moving on. We always have a question of the day for you, and we love it when you guys write in. And I want to know from you guys today, when do you feel discriminated against? I can tell you that over the years, because we've been doing this show now for 10 years, can you believe that? And over the years, there have been times that people have written in, like this morning, and saying, your little graphic thing makes me a little, sensory, right? And I've been told many times, I'll say something and Alex Plank tells me this all the time. He'll go, that right there, Shannon, that's ableist thinking. And it cuts me to the core, because I was raised by a woman who never would use the word disabled or handicapped. That was just not in her vocabulary, but she qualified for both designations, but she hated the terms, right? But she was born with both feet backwards and spent most of her life on crutches or in a wheelchair. And if not, certainly limping, hobbling to get where she was going to go. And so I think I tend to think of things, and every time I look at a set of stairs, I tend to think about, how does everyone get in here? I remember going and touring the Tetons and sitting on a rock and crying because I was like, this is beautiful. We hiked up and got to a waterfall, and I sat down and sobbed. And someone said, oh, isn't it great? Nature can do this for you. And I said, no, my mother can never see this. There is no way for her to get here. And that's so tragic for me, right? But so I like to think that I never engage in ableist thinking, but that's completely wrong. That's completely wrong. Of course, because of perspective taking, there are times when I go, oh, I wasn't thinking about that. That's ableist thinking. So, when do you feel discriminated against? I would love to tell you that as a white woman, I've never been discriminated against, but that wouldn't be true, right? There have been many times when I have been told. I was just telling somebody the other day about my fifth grade science teacher who informed me that women weren't good at science, and that we should just be pretty and wear lipstick. That's how old I am, that I had a fifth grade teacher who told me that, right? And it's not the only time in my life that I've been told because I'm a woman that I can't do something. I realize that in the realm of being discriminated against, that's, a very small thing. But I'm asking all of you, when do you feel discriminated against? Let's talk about it. All right, moving on. We always have a topic of the week. And our topic this week is our salute to educators. I know sometimes I'm really hard on the education system, and because I think I should be. And as a former teacher, I want to make sure that we get the fair and even balance. I think there are some wonderful educators out there, and they're doing such a good job during this distance learning and hybrid learning, depending on where you are. It's not everybody. Let's be honest about that. All teachers are not brilliant and wonderful, but for this week, I really want to take some time and focus on those who are, and highlight them and showcase them, and ask you to nominate teachers that are doing a great job during this distance learning, because I would like to show what they're doing so that other educators will see it and go, oh, I never thought about that. Let's share the good ideas. So looking forward to that. Okay, we've got a great show for you today. We've got Bonnie Yates joining us in just a minute. And she's going to be talking with us about special education law. She is, in fact, a special education attorney here in Southern California. I want to take just a second here to look at some of the things that you guys have written in. Somebody wrote in and said, to answering the question, I don't know that we have been. Maybe when people stare at us while our twins are having a moment. I get it. They don't know. They don't know from Adam They likely think that we don't discipline. My husband will get frazzled and I simply ignore them. And that's wonderful. That if you can ignore, it's really hard. My favorite phrase is other people's opinions of my parenting is none of my business. That's hard though. Other people's opinions of my parenting is none of my business. So when I see people, and doing that, and I don't get it as much anymore, although I do get a little still. But now it's mostly because people think I'm way too helicopter for my 17-year-old son. And you know what? They might be right. But when he was little, it was hard. And I had to have a really good friend of mine who is also a parent of an individual on the spectrum who's like, girl, you put your shoulders back and you walk tall and proud. Those people have no idea what you're going through. You just put their thoughts out of your mind and you walk with your shoulders back and you be proud. That helped me a lot. And I try to remind, my shoulders creep up around my neck because of tension and all, but I try to remember, put my shoulders back and walk tall, right? Somebody else, I have a question. My daughter got a bill from the school that two of her sons attend. It's a Blast 17 school just for special needs kids. She just got the bill for damages done from last year. Can they charge the parents, being that they accepted the children in the school, knowing the child's actions during a meltdown? Oh, we're going to ask Bonnie Yates that question in just a minute. Stick with us when we have Bonnie. And there's Bonnie. Bonnie, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So here we have Bonnie Yates, and she's good morning. She's a special education attorney, and thank you for being our guinea pig to try out this new platform. I love that you could hear before you came in. That's so awesome.
It was
and I love that you're here. We should say that you are with the Tollner Law Offices, and that you practice in Southern California, but the law firm practices in many different places throughout California and
Nevada, Arizona. Yeah, kind of like a Western states thing. Tollner Law Offices, you can Google us on the web if you want a free consultation and you live in California, Arizona, or Nevada. We can accommodate that. If you don't, there's a lot of interesting information on the website. If you need an attorney, and I often recommend that people take their specific problems to attorneys in their state, I refer you to COPA, COPAA.net. And I'm not sure that there is any legitimate authority for trying to shoehorn money out of parents because their disabled child destroyed school property. That's kind of a first. So let's just say no. And if you have some authority to the contrary, it sure be interesting to see what that is. I actually just sort of spontaneously, I'm going to share something and then we'll get to the stuff I wanted to share with you. I noticed in my email today that it's National Suicide Awareness Month. And I was like, oh man, I used to like every fall when I would see that, I'd want to like get out there and tell people like, don't give up, no matter how bad you think it gets, you can get better. And in asking your questions about disability, it's interesting to me. It can be sort of a fluid thing because I was somebody for 20 plus years that my main experience of disability was dealing with it in other people. But for a period of time after 2012, I actually ended up disabled and in a wheelchair and sort of had to give up my whole former life because when you can't walk more than 2 blocks, it's really limiting. So I guess what I wanted to say to people out there is that, if you or someone you love has a disability, not all disabilities are permanent disabilities. I was able to get better and kind of resume a very full life, which I think makes me full of gratitude every day. But also, a lot of children with disabilities do get better if they get the right help, and they will go out into society and they will be, participatory people. And I think that they are touched by the experience of disability. And Shannon, I didn't know that about your mom, but now I get it, why you're so simpatico. So, I think that the pain I experienced in having a disabled child was the greatest pain I ever had in my life. But at the same time, it taught me so much, and I am so grateful for every good thing that happens. And, I don't want to sound too like, namby-pamby, but there is learning that can come from the suffering. So anyway, if you are feeling really, really, really low, just keep trying and reach out to people and don't give up and don't kill yourself, because you'd miss a whole lot of good stuff that could come afterwards. So
absolutely. Thank you for that.
It's really hard, the burden that parents carry even before becoming their, children's 24/7 support system. So,
well, not just the parents. I mean, we have a lot of viewers that are not necessarily parents, but that have an interest in the autism community, whether it's that they're teachers or practitioners or individuals who are themselves on the autism spectrum. And we know that that community are folks who are diagnosed on the autism spectrum. And I guess some of those that qualify but haven't yet been diagnosed, we know that the incidence of suicide is higher in that population. And I wish that weren't the case. And I would love to see us turn those numbers around through support and love and reminding people that there is a way to reach out and that there is help that's out there. So thanks for bringing that up, Bonnie.
Thank you, Shannon. So, today, a couple things are happening in California, and then we're going to talk about something completely different. California passed another bill, and the bill basically says that any student with an IEP needs to have an emergency plan written into their IEP, either at the initial IEP or the next meeting to revise the IEP. The emergency plan is triggered if school is going to be closed by, for more than 10 days for any reason. So it could be due to fire, it could be due to pandemic, it could be due to, but I don't even want to say civil unrest. So just, anything that shuts schools, there has to be something written into your child's IEP that explains how they're supposed to receive their special education during school closure. So for those of you that are having IEP meetings, you might want to remind the district that it's time to put this plan into place. Also in California, and maybe something similar is going to come to pass in other states or already has, teachers are now supposed to be collecting attendance and participation logs. So an attorney for our firm did a probe and asked for attendance and participation logs, and they weren't taking any data. So that was interesting, and we're still kind of thinking about what to do with all of that. We've been plunged into a world since March where the rules are new, the strategies are new, the kinds of mistakes that we are afraid we aren't anticipating are new. And it's like running all the time. And I was like, oh God, I've just been so reactive on the show. All we do is talk about like what happened last week. So I'm going to bring us back to some more basic special education concepts that we can use now, maybe, and also we can use after the pandemic is over and we return to regular face-to-face public education.
I love that. I've got two comments that I want to bring up because I don't want to let this go. The question of the day was, how do you feel that you've been discriminated against? And Michael wrote in and said, I had a major meltdown on the bus and the driver yelled at me. And I want to talk about that for just a second, but I also want to acknowledge that a parent said, Parent Disability Rights of Texas is free if you qualify, and they have helped me tremendously in my ARD. And for those of you who don't know, ARD is what they call the IEP in Texas. I don't know what ARD stands for, but I know.
And designation or something like that.
There we go. But it's the same thing as the IEP. It's just they call it the ARD. But just for a second, for people, because the bus is a particularly hard space, and I see time and time again that we have issues with school, with kids riding on a bus way too long because they're being shipped to a school rather than their home school, and then that creates fodder for interesting and upsetting things to happen on the bus, because 9 times out of 10, the bus driver is not someone who has been trained necessarily to deal with any kind of behavior, and usually an aid is not covered for on the bus. So we have a circumstance.
Although it can be.
Right. And I just wanted you to talk for 2 seconds about like what you can do in any of those circumstances, because I think we have rights in all of those different places, right? You have the
Well,
right
I mean,
to ask for your child not to be put on the bus to drive an hour to go to school.
yeah, I mean, the transportation aspect of the IEP is a component of FAPE. So if the transportation is unreasonable, you can convene an IEP meeting to discuss what other ways to get to school that might be faster than a bus. If you have a bus driver that's being abusive to a student, that's not really a IEP or special ed issue. I mean, I suppose it's a discrimination issue under ADA or 504, but there also could just be basic civil liability for that behavior. And, some schools have private transportation companies with whom they contract, and some schools have public buses that they put kids on. But I think what you got to do is write a letter to the superintendent and say, this is what's happening to my kid, and I know you wouldn't want this to happen, and I want to let you know about it, and what can we do to rectify the situation immediately? And you should also call an IEP team meeting to discuss the transportation issue. Because otherwise, I think the way the transportation thing works is it's a quote unquote hassle. So, unless pushed, everybody's going to want to leave. And a bus is less expensive than a taxi. So the tendency is going to be, if not pushed, to leave that situation in place.
Okay.
So you do have to push back against that.
And thank you for the clarification. This person wrote that this was actually on a city bus, not a school bus. So that's an entirely different kettle of fish, but covered under ADA, which was our job of the day.
And the city bus company could be liable for the discriminatory treatment at the hands of the bus driver.
Absolutely. I want to say, and I didn't start with this because we had a different issue, but of course we're all reeling from the loss of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I'm sure as a lawyer and as a woman that's something notable for you. I know a lot of women who, I know a lot of men who clutched their chests and said, oh, what an amazing, amazing woman. What an amazing attorney. What an amazing judge she was. So my condolences to all of us, but to you, Bonnie, for the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Well, apparently Ruth Bader Ginsburg also had in her husband's family a very practical set of people that were good problem solvers, and they just didn't get that intimidated by big tasks.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so what
we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about stay put and its implications. And stay put is something that's a part of the IDEA. It applies in the 50 states. Individual states can do it a bit differently. And usually the way that works is the federal law is kind of like the foundation. And if states want to give more rights than that, they can. So your state, if you're not in California, might have a different set of rules as pertains to certain aspects of stay put, but the general concepts are the same from state to state. So I find that oftentimes parents haven't been told about stay put. It's there in your procedural safeguards that they hand you at the beginning of the IEP, but nobody's necessarily explaining to the parent that this is an important concept to understand. The thinking behind stay put was that there had to be predictability and protection of the student in the event that there was a dispute, and that the best way to achieve that would be to preserve the status quo until this dispute could be resolved. And so the practical effect is the district can't just change your placement if they want to without having to contemplate the possibility that there would be a process. So if you go to your IEP and the district says, we don't think mainstreaming is working out, or let's take another one. We don't really think you need this aid anymore. We don't think this behaviorist is really doing anything. They just sit at the back of the classroom. We want to take them out of your IEP. You have the ability to enjoin the school district from doing that, meaning you can get sort of an automatic injunction under the IDEA, and the way you do that is you file a complaint for due process, and as soon as you file that complaint, it has the effect of preventing a change in placement. So there are a lot of different instances in which that could come up. And, with private schools, one of the things the districts do is if they pay for a year of a private school after a dispute, they will write right into the settlement agreement that the FAPE is the IEP of blah, blah, blah data, not the settlement agreement. Excuse me, because they don't want you to come back and say, okay, we have a disagreement. You don't want to pay for private school anymore. I'm stay putting the private school. But if you could get them to write that the private school is stay put, and, of course, sometimes we've all, in certain cases had that happen, that's obviously better. So the first thing that I want you to understand is that you have this right that's called stay put, and it's triggered by filing for due process. And that once you file for due process, the district has to maintain the current educational placement until the appeal process has been exhausted. So typically, some states it's only up to and through a district court decision. Other states, you'd have the right to actually appeal to the federal appellate level and get your decision reviewed. But certainly the reason districts don't like stay put is because they understand that a person can tie up the placement for 2 or 3 years in litigation. But it is child protective, and the district, are one thing they're pretty good about is they don't tend to violate stay put orders. They tend to follow them. So you get into.
Can I jump in there and make a comment, Bonnie? That I think a lot of times as parents we feel powerless, and sometimes, parents will write in all the time and go, we were doing X, Y, and Z, and then the school decided to do Q. Mm-hmm. And what are my rights? And I think that this goes right to the core of two things: that you can't be bullied. That they can make a decision to change something, but you have the right to put a stay put in. But this is also why I always say to parents, some parents get so stressed about going to the IEP meeting that they go, does it really make a difference what's in the IEP? Like, why don't I just say yes to whatever they say, and then we'll slog it out and sort it out later on, and we'll see if because the school will tell you, well, let's just try what we're asking. Why don't you just sign the paper? We'll just try what we're asking, and then we'll see where we get. But if it's already in the document that your child is supposed to get something, because of the stay put, they can't bully you out of it. And that's, for me, one of the reasons why it's so important to get it in the document to begin with. Because I just heard you say is that sometimes the legal schmiegel, when you fight it out, takes months and years. But in the meantime, if your child is getting the services and you did the stay put, then it doesn't matter whether it takes years for it to work out, because
you might want it to take years. I mean, I'm not embarrassed to tell you that in the good old days with LA Unified, they didn't even require us to file, and we would have kids that had like a full 30-hour ABA program, and we would just invoke stay put, and like 3 years later, the district would finally get around to dealing with it. But and
by then they didn't need 30 hours anymore, maybe because they've done so well.
Maybe not. The thing is, you got to remember, if it's offered in an IEP, you have to consent to it, or else it's not stay put. If it's never implemented, but it's in an IEP, it's not stay put. It has to actually be the last agreed upon and implemented placement.
That's an important distinction. I want to say hello because we got people writing in on Periscope, which we don't often have, but with this new platform. And so somebody named Sensory Autistic has written in on Periscope and wants to know if we remember them. But because you're under a code name, I don't know who you are. So write in and tell us who you are, and then I'll see if probably I do remember you, but I don't remember that code name. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about stay put and how long it can continue. And then the question is, what is meant by current educational placement? As used in the stay put provision, the word current generally means the placement and services that are in effect when the parents file their due process complaint. In most instances, these services will be found in the student's most recently implemented IEP. So it's as we discussed, it's got to be written into the IEP. Now, there are some exceptions to stay put, and there are logical exceptions. One is if a school closes, like if you're in a non-public school and the school closes, you cannot invoke stay put because your placement doesn't exist anymore. In California, we have a very liberal construction of what placement means. So it means location, facilities, and personnel. So when you try to change somebody's stay put in California, you're pretty well protected against losing your placement. One of the interesting things too, and I think the law's unsettled, is if you invoke stay put in first grade, does that mean you continue in the same classroom in the first grade, receiving the first grade curriculum, or do you move up in your stay put to the second grade curriculum when school resumes? So in every case, there's going to be a varying degree of question as to what the stay put is. And sometimes you get into language issues where you're actually having to litigate what the stay put is, whether it's in an IEP or a settlement agreement. I read.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say an example. When my son was in, was it fifth? It was fifth grade.
Yeah.
We had it written into his IEP that because there was a very set number of classrooms to go in fifth grade, and there was one class that was a fifth grade, sixth grade blend. And we had it written into the IEP that he would go into a fifth and sixth grade blend because we wanted him with that group of kids, with that teacher. And I was amazed that we got it written in because I know that's a hard thing, but we got it written in during the summer. The principal changed. Principal came, took one look at that and said, I don't want that, and dismantled the fifth, sixth grade class so that there was no more fifth, and I couldn't do a stay put because it no longer existed.
Well, right. If the class no longer exists, you're not going to be able to have a stay put. If you're coming from another district and you have an IEP, for the first 30 days, the district's supposed to implement your IEP. Then you have a meeting and the district offers FAPE based on its own evaluations and or review of records, and they may offer you something different. And if you disagree with that and you don't like it, then you can invoke stay put in that circumstance. And I think we're going to have the potential for using stay put when we get into these like distance learning plan analyses situations. That's part of the reason I'm talking about it now.
Okay.
Interestingly, apparently, even though 504 doesn't have its own explicit stay put provision, the Office of Civil Rights has said that Section 504 has an implicit stay put component. I don't know what it is, but apparently it has an implicit stay put component. OCR has taken the position that a fair due process system, which we do have for 504, would encompass a district waiting for the results of due process before making the change. Then there's also kiddos that are transitioning from under 3 services to over 3 services, and the law has been that you don't get stay put of those services. But we did have the federal government saying that currently, if somebody's in Part C and the district won't evaluate and offer them an IEP, that those Part C services might continue. So that's a little COVID development that maybe wasn't anticipated. You also have rights, I'm not going to get into it, but rights as to stay put if your child is a subject of disciplinary proceedings, which often involve a district trying to change a kid's placement. And there's even the possibility of stay put for a private school, and this is how that works. Let's say you place your child at Shannon Penrod's amazing private school academy for geniuses. And, you get into a hearing about the appropriateness of that placement, and you've been paying for it all along. If the hearing officer orders reimbursement of that placement, that becomes a stay put placement. So that is kind of a cool thing, that you can actually get a stay put of a private school in certain circumstances. And finally, just sort of bringing this around to the end of all of this, stay put comes in at graduation, because graduation is a change of placement. And if you have a student that needs to remain in school for longer than the district does, you must prevent graduation. Because once your student graduates public school with a high school diploma, that's it. And there's no stay put of the placement unless you file before graduation. So just a couple little nuances about that. California used to have a high school exit exam and you had to pass it to graduate. They got rid of that. So now basically everybody graduates, in my opinion. Everybody is graduated. The standard for graduation, if you're on a regular diploma, is you're supposed to meet the state course of study as sort of interpreted by your district. And, if you meet those graduation requirements, you're out. That's it. And what we're seeing a lot of is kids that are reading on a second or third grade level and are no way ready to assume, individual responsibility for their own transition goals and their own life post-graduation, and they're being spat out and graduated. If you have a student that you think is in that category, you should be actively making a plan now to.
Oops, she's frozen on my screen. Well, hopefully we'll get Bonnie back. We were doing so well on the new platform, but we've lost her. I also want to say, too, so that you guys know, on my crawl for the comments, it's great because I'm getting them in real time, but when a bunch of you write in at the same time, it fills the screen and pushes them to the bottom, and I haven't figured out how to get back up. I've clicked just about everything, Traven, and I can't see other than the ones that are right there. Like I've tried to eliminate ones. I can't, nothing. Well, let me do that. But hopefully we'll be able to get Bonnie back. Hopefully she'll unfreeze and we'll be able to get her back to hear more about Stay Put. While we're waiting to see if that happens, does anybody have any questions about the Stay Put or why? And now I'm breaking up a little bit. What's going on? There she is.
I don't know. My computer, it didn't like that. It didn't like this table I had it on. But just so that we don't lose the thread here.
Yeah.
There's a different way. If you are on diploma track to graduate, you will be out by the end of 12th grade. If you are on diploma track to graduate, but you can establish that you really have not met all your IEP goals and you haven't really met all of the state standards, because how could you pass X, Y, or Z class if you're only reading on a second grade level? It would be possible, rather than to put you on a certificate of completion, to extend the date for graduation. So you might graduate as a 13th grader or a 14th grader with a high school diploma. Otherwise, you're going to be working toward a certificate of completion based on a modified curriculum, and you will be entitled to receive IDEA services until your 22nd birthday.
Let me ask you something for people right now on this bubble with COVID. If you've got a 12th grader and you don't feel like your child is ready to graduate and ready to go on to something else, normally it's sort of like a thing where, like you said, you got to do the Stay Put. But especially because of COVID, you could ask for that extra year, correct? And would that just be a Stay Put, or would that be something?
Well, I don't know if it would be Stay Put or if it would be a challenge to graduation based on not having achieved enough to be ready to begin, working on your transition goals. I think this is common, and I think the first step is you got to take it back to the IEP team and share with them your evidence about why the student isn't ready to graduate, and see what kind of pushback you get, and you go from there. I have a student like this right now, and he is good, but he only got there a year ago. And
You're breaking up for some reason, Bonnie.
How about now?
Now I got you. Yeah. So you were saying about the student.
The point is, if your student is reading on a second or third grade level, he or she is not really ready to graduate with a high school diploma, and that has to be addressed.
Yeah.
Once if he graduates, he's out. That's it. No remedy.
Yeah. There's no going back. And then you've got to look for other programs to fill the student's day, or other schools to send them to, whereas if they don't graduate, they're still eligible for services from the school district.
Correct.
So it's an important consideration for folks. So there we go. I don't understand the comment that somebody sent in, but and we're getting a little clicking noise. So just noting. So Bonnie, this is all very important, this Stay Put information, and very, very useful to us. We're running out of time here, but I wanted you to take a second to talk about Tollner Law Offices and how people can get a hold of you.
Hey, Toner Law Offices. We're an 8 attorney firm. Seems like between the 8 of us, there's always one of us that knows the answer to somebody else's question, which is really nice. We're based in San Jose, Irvine, and Los Angeles. If you're in the state of California, Arizona, or Nevada, we'd be happy to meet with you for a free. If you're not, please talk to an attorney in your state and check out COPAA.net as a possible place to find attorneys that could help you in your state.
I also want to say that Bonnie is here with us almost every Monday, and she really loves it when you guys send her in specific questions. I think, Bonnie loves to educate us, but more than anything, she loves to be helpful. And so if you have specific questions, and the more information you can give her, the better, please write into us. You can write to me at s.penrod@autism-live.com. We love to get the questions ahead of time so that Bonnie can have a chance to look them over. She will come back with a better answer if you give her more time to look at it. So I know that a lot of people have been, there's my email on the screen for you, s.penrod@autism-live.com. Thanks, Traven. I know that a lot of people have been going to their IEP meetings, their ARD meetings, and their 504 meetings. And it's, I'm waiting to hear from people if they're happy with what was discussed at the meetings. I know that we've got people who still feel like their school district is waiting until they can come back in person. And that is not the thing. If your child is in a classroom right now, distance or otherwise, they have the right to that free, appropriate public education. So they can't really say that they can't do services until they're back in person, can they?
No, and I was going to ask you, Shannon, we're obviously thinking on the same line of things. I want to hear what's happening with your distance learning plans. I want to know if you feel like you need help in getting the district's attention. If the district is ignoring you, let's talk about some things you could propose to them to improve your situation. And those could include things like outside agency services, parent training, a different way of delivering services, a modified school day. This is not supposed to be a one-size-fits-all distance learning plan, and parents may need to do something different. So I'd love to get questions about that would be helpful next week.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm hearing, and I don't know if it's just LAUSD, but I know of 2 cases in LAUSD where in the IEP it is written that the child has an aid that is provided by an outside ABA provider, and that's great. But the stipulation is only when school is live and in person to person. And that otherwise, if school is not live in session with everyone there, the LAUSD is saying that that's just off the table. They can't provide it. So sorry.
Well, are they saying they can't provide it at all, or they're saying they can't provide it face to face?
I believe they're saying they can't provide it at all because what was in the IEP was face to face, and since there is
No, the law is very clear. They have to try to do their best to implement the IEP as closely as possible to non-virtual conditions. So consider things like having the ABA provider in the house, or have the ABA provider on another Zoom screen participating in the the daily classroom instruction. I think if you just refuse to provide that, you're going to owe these parents a whole lot of compensatory education when we get around to that calculation. And if you guys have questions about how Comp Ed works and how it might pertain to the services you didn't get, let's talk about that. Okay, so whatever you guys want next week, I'll prepare something else. If we get questions, we'll do the questions.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Bonnie. Have a good week.
You too, Shannon.
Bye-bye. We just have a couple of minutes here, and I just wanted to take a second to talk about a couple of different things with you guys for this week. So tomorrow we've turned Tuesday into Temple Grandin Tuesday. So we are either live with Temple, or we're showing you recorded interviews that we've done before that we think are worthwhile to highlight. So we had her live last week. Tomorrow we're going to replay the episode. So if you missed it last week, you'll get to see why people were telling me to shut my pie hole. But she's lovely. She's absolutely divine, and she's wonderful. So we're replaying that tomorrow. Now, on Wednesday, we've got Evelyn Kung joining us. She's an autism expert. We love to get live questions for her about things that are going on with you or with your kiddo. She, again, autism expert in the field of ABA. Please feel free to write in about any behavior that you're having or someone you love is having that you want to know more information about, how to teach or how to like change a behavior that's preventing somebody from being able to do what they want to do. That's really what she's awesome at. Then on Thursday, I'm very excited about this. There is a new program that has started in the SUNY system. I'm going to use all the wrong words here, but the State University of New York system. I am a child of that and an adult of that and a professional of that system. My dad worked for the State University of New York and as a technical director in television, creating programs, educational programs. And then I did my undergraduate at a SUNY school, a State University of New York school. And then eventually I went back and was a professor at a SUNY school. So I'm very much a product of the SUNY system. They have a new program that is opening in my hometown, which is crazy because that's not where I went to school. And they're literally opening an autism center in the backyard of the neighborhood that I grew up in. And it is a special autism center because it is meant specifically to train individuals to work with individuals on the spectrum. And they'll be doing it on site, both classroom and working with them, but from a point of view of compassion and inclusivity. So I am so excited that on Thursday, Dr. Noor Syed is going to be with us to talk about this new center, Inclusivity Center, and their new program and the way that they are looking at training professionals to do ABA from a compassionate, caring, empathetic point of view that recognizes neurodiversity. I think everybody's going to be very excited about this. I'm so excited to have her with us on Thursday. Then on Friday, we've got two amazing guests for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Vince Redmond will be here with us. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist, but we also have an amazing young woman who is doing a research project. And I mentioned this to you guys on Friday, that she's doing a research project and needs parents in Southern California to fill out a survey about their IEP process. So it's only for Southern California parents, but we're wanting to have a lot of parents fill out this survey. And when you fill it out, you're eligible to win a gift card. I think it's a drawing, so not everybody gets a gift card, but you're in a drawing to get a gift card. And it's a very useful way to impact IEPs going forward. And it is something that, while they're only looking at Southern California, it's something that has the ability to impact all of us in all of the states. So I really love that. She's going to be here with us to tell you how, if you qualify in Southern California, that you can fill out the survey. Very excited about having her share that with us. I want to thank all of you for being here with us and for trying out this new format. Remember to write in and tell us. I'm especially interested for the person who said, I want to know, is it the opening of the show that makes you seasick, or is it the jargon of the day motion that makes you seasick? Because we're working on changing both of those, and I would like for it to not be a sensory nightmare for the folks watching the show. So will you write more to me about what was sensory activating, not pleasantly, about those, so that we can make sure that as we move forward with what we're trying to do, that we can perhaps improve upon that. That would make me really happy. I really appreciate you being here. All right, we will be back tomorrow with Temple Grandin. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you live from different places in Southern California. And you can see that we are already joined by our wonderful guest today. Evelyn Kung is here with us for Ask Evelyn Kung. Evelyn, good morning.
Good morning. It's so nice to see you.
It's good to see you too. So if you folks are tuning in and you haven't been here for the last couple of days, we're trying out a new platform. We think we like it and are going to stick with it, but we'd love to hear from you guys. We're being told it's a little bit crisper sound-wise and picture-wise. So, let's keep fingers crossed that continues throughout today's stream, as it were. But you saw on your first screen this morning all the different ways that you can connect with us, because we are going to be live with you for the next hour talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective, having you ask live questions of Evelyn. She is a true autism expert when working in this field for multiple decades. So you can be writing in your question. Let's talk about all the different ways that you can connect with us. And I don't know, Traven, if you can put that screen back up, but we are live right now on the left side. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, and on our homepage, it's autism-live.com. And then on the other side, it's all the places that, in addition to those places, that we podcast. So we are a free download on iTunes, and you can choose either to be sound only or sound and picture on iTunes, and it is a free download to you. We're on Apple. It's like I borrowed these teeth today, and I've been awake for hours. I can't blame it on that. So Apple Podcast, that's a mouthful. We're available there. We're also on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Ghana, Amazon Music. Check it out. I think it's starting relatively soon. Audible, and on Deezer. If there is some place that you like to get your podcast and it is not listed here, please let us know. If we're not there, there's only two reasons why we wouldn't be there. And one is that it charges the viewers, because we've made a commitment to avoid that as long as we can hold out. And the other reason is that maybe we don't know about it. So instruct us, teach us. We love to be informed. So let us know. All right, so those are the different ways that you can write in. I also want to encourage you, we have a live chat on our homepage, autism-live.com. I will tell you that these first four over there during the live show are the most efficient if you are on YouTube, Periscope, Facebook, or Twitter. It will show up for us a little bit faster than it has in the past. We're figuring out the chat, because when you guys all write in on the same time, it scrolls fast, and we haven't figured out how to scroll back yet. So bear with us. We're new at this, but we're thrilled to be here, as I said, with Evelyn Kung. Evelyn, talk a little bit about what you do at CARD and how long you've been doing that at CARD.
I've been doing it this almost 30 years, so it's kind of crazy for me to even think about that. But I've been at CARD so long that I predate the BCBA, which is the certification for behavior analysts to work in this field. But really, I do all sorts of things, but my favorite thing to do is actually to help families still. That's doing the clinical part and helping supervisors problem solve when they run into cases or situations that they're just not sure what to do, or they just want a second pair of eyes to see a child, and basically trying to ensure that treatment is the best that they can be and that they're on the right path. So still the thing I love the most.
It's a lovely gift to all of us. So this morning, as I said, you guys can be writing in your questions right now on any of those places. I've not seen a chat yet, and so somebody say hi so we can make sure that it is working. But we do have questions that were written ahead of time, and you can always do that. Want to tell you that you can always email me to have your question put into the mix. My email is s.penrod@autism-live.com. Don't email me during the live show because I'm not toggling between my email and here. But if it's Saturday afternoon and you're like, you know what I want to know on Wednesday, feel free to email me. Thank you, Danielle, for saying hello so we know on Facebook at least that it is working. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so that's how fast that goes. I don't know how fast that was for you, Danielle, but it was fast for me. Okay, I want to start with a really long question that they gave me the permission to. Actually, I'm going to go to a live question so that I don't lose it. Thank you, Kirsten. May wants to know, when a BT starts his session, should it be structured or not?
Well, it really depends, because sometimes transitions are hard for kids. So, and a lot of our kids at the ASD have difficulty with transition. So usually it will depend on the child. Some children love the structure of starting, so they just want to start right away and get into it. But if they're too much that way, maybe we purposely don't start with structure, because that is how real life is outwards. And we're working on generalization to, get them to be okay if structure doesn't happen immediately. And then there are some kids who you need to kind of do some rapport building at every session, because some kids don't know who the BT is when they come in, and maybe you need some time to build rapport and for them to remember, oh, I like this person. Because remember, kids with ASD don't see other people the same way. And I know sometimes they don't remember who people are, because for whatever reason, I don't know why, but it's just like a little prompt for them to realize, oh yeah, I like you. You're fun, or you say things this way, so I'm going to pay attention. So it really depends on your child. The idea is that, you can get them in, and it should, compliance is a big deal. If your child doesn't have compliance, it's really hard to teach, just like with any other kid out there. So what I always tell people is, if you're just starting a program, you might have some rapport building time. But then there is a time where you have to just gain compliance. Otherwise, your session kind of goes too long in trying to build rapport. So, it can be any of those things.
And I want to just chime in as a parent and as somebody my son did 5 years of intensive ABA. And, there were some times during the day that it was better to jump right in for him. And sometimes during the day when they had to work on rapport. And there were some therapists who, I always like to say, Evelyn, I don't know if you've ever heard me do my talk about what the ideal dream team looks like. And because parents always want the rock stars. We want what's best for our child, right? So we want the rock star therapist. And I learned over 5 years that it's great to have a rock star on your team, but you don't want a whole team of rock stars, because then when your child goes out into the world and interacts with somebody who's not an ABA rock star, they don't know what to do. So my whole thing was that I want a rock star who's just like makes it so fun. I liked having somebody on the team who I call the drill sergeant, who's just like all business and gets it done, but I don't want them all the time, right? I like having a newbie on the team, somebody who's brand new to ABA, because they ask things in a different way. And I saw that my child generalized faster. But each one of those people kind of structures their session differently. And in the beginning, I was like, why aren't they all doing it the same? But what I discovered was, in the world, people don't do it always the same, and that I wanted him to be used to a wide array of people. So even between times of day, and they said completely agree. So wonderful. How can we help further the understanding about girls on the spectrum when a great deal of doctors are not familiar with girls with autism at all?
That's a rough one, because I actually don't look at girls versus boys. I feel like the whole medical field just needs a training on what autism is, because right now, depending on who you go to, is what they know. A lot of I have some amazing friends who have been like the only, one of 2 interns in the whole country that specializes like in pediatrics, internal medicine. And, they'll call me and they'll be like, yeah, I got my 1 hour for the year on autism, or my half day. And that's not enough. And I feel like just looking, the rate of autism is so high now that really overall the training and maybe even retraining of doctors is more important overall. Because once you recognize what autism is in all its different forms across the whole spectrum, then I think the gender thing doesn't matter as much, because then you know how to ask the right questions. And maybe that is with girls, it is a different kind of question. But in many ways, I feel like girls, it's easier to spot because little girls are just chatty from when they're really little. And boys are more, this is totally stereotypical. But, if you get a 4-year-old, you'll have more little girls sitting there talking about something, and you'll have more boys like running and zooming around the playground. And it's easier to teach our kids to do the zooming and running than it is to sit there and do the chat and the topic of conversation, play. And so I think that just overall, the general training of physicians on what autism is across the whole spectrum just needs to be. I don't know if that helps you.
Well, and I just want to point out, too, from a perspective taking thing, that Evelyn's answer is indicative of exactly what she's talking about, because for her, she's an amazing expert in the field of autism who understands autism and has seen it in all of its forms. So to her, it's very easy for her to spot autism in a girl because she understands how different it could be. And I think that's her point exactly, which is that we need to educate the other people who are diagnosing so that they understand that too. And that's really the crux.
Yes.
We really want to bring awareness to the differences in autism across the entire world. But until we start with the people who are diagnosing, girls are going to continue to not be diagnosed. And I just want to point out that that's why she's saying that, because she's a true expert in the field and knows experts in the field who do recognize those differences. And if we could get everybody to that, it would go a long way to getting help and support for our girls. I want to make sure that I address this question. What about when ABA fails or makes the child worse? Now, I've got stuff to say about that, but I'm for sure that you do too, Evelyn.
I'm in agreement that there is bad ABA out there. Unfortunately, there is a lot of bad ABA. And when BCBAs come to CARD, we always say, if you really love the field of ABA, but don't love people, you're going to fail in this field. It just does not work. You have to love people and love the patients you're working with and really want to care about them to make ABA really effective and to really understand how to implement it too for every different child that comes in. And so there's that aspect, and I know Dr. Graham-Pichet, she actually went on with all her supervisors and said, if you love experimental ABA but don't like people, you shouldn't be at CARD. So it kind of shocked people, but it's very true. You have to want to help people in order for it to be effective. When ABA fails, I don't know if ABA fails or when people get worse, it depends what your definition of worse is. Because there is a situation like behaviorally where if a child's been tantruming to get what they want for the last 2 years and suddenly you're not paying attention to that tantrum anymore and it's not getting what they want, their behavior will get much worse before it gets better. Because they have to test, I'm screaming, but you're not paying attention. So now I'm going to scream louder and you're still not paying attention. So maybe now I'm going to throw some things and maybe I'm going to bite someone and maybe I'm going to do all this. And then when they realize, oh, none of this works, then their behavior will drop. And that's actually a behavioral technique that we called an extinction burst. And a lot of times families give up while the behavior is going up. And then what you're doing then is you're just telling that child, you need to either tantrum more, be more aggressive before I attend to you. And we always tell families you have to work through that behavioral extinction burst, because once you work through it, the behavior just drops very quickly. And Shannon's nodding her head because she's seen it. And and it's amazing how that can, if you stop it in that point of time, it might look like the behavior is getting worse, but it's because you didn't work all the way through. And if you work it all the way through, you will see the behavior change when it happens. So you have to give ABA time to work too. You know,
Yeah.
if you do get, like, let's say bad ABA, you go get a second opinion. Like, that's what I tell people. I remember being a young supervisor, and I hated it when people came to get second opinions on whatever I was doing. But the thing is, it did make me better. You know, it taught me how to work with other people or to explain why I'm doing what I'm doing. And, you know, of course, when I started, everybody that came out of the LOVAS program that was doing second opinions. So it was very intimidating. But it was just like one of these things that, you know, it does make you better. And there is bad ABA out there. And if you think you have bad ABA, I would encourage you to go look and see if there's better, because your child deserves it.
Yeah, it's one of our missions here on the show to sort of distinguish for people the difference between good ABA and bad ABA. But you should know that really good quality ABA has been found to be the most effective teaching technique across so many different standards, whether it's somebody who's neurotypical or somebody who's on the autism spectrum. And that if you do the right amount of ABA and it's individual, right? We kind of know that if it's somebody who's under the age of 5, that the prescription is going to look very similar. That, you know, I guess that there are some kiddos who may be under the age of 5 who really don't need a 40-hour program, but I'd love to argue that. I would really love to argue that, because I think sometimes when kids are doing really well under the age of 5, they go, let's give them half, and sometimes it shortchanges them. But that's one way that you can tell your good quality ABA. Over the age of 5, it gets very individualized. But if you're not doing your full prescription, then you really can't tell that whether it's working or not. And you might be leaving your child in a place where they're in an extinction burst. So I'm losing things in the crawl. So I feel like I'm on a treadmill here. If you're an adult who thinks you're on the spectrum and you don't know how to go about getting diagnosed, especially if you don't have confidence to even bring it up, what suggestions do you have for them, Evelyn?
There are, you know, we're getting a lot of adults right now who are getting diagnosed. They never had it. Usually they have a pretty good structure from their family they came that was really structured in how they were being taught. And that's how they get so far. But we do have a lot of 30 and 40-year-olds now who are getting referred for diagnosis. And there are a lot of, you just have to find a psychologist who has experience with autism. You know, and you can go in there and just say, I'm just wondering if, you know, I fall on the spectrum. And they'll sit down with you and do a complete history with you and interview you and talk to you and give you a diagnosis. But you want to go to someone who has the experience of diagnosing autism. So, you know, that's the important part of it. But if you do, I encourage you to go look and find out. We've had people come in, adults who come in, where they were referred to us by their human resources department. In their job. Or maybe I had a patient recently, a new patient come in, and her parents had passed away, and she just didn't have the structure anymore in her life. And it had been about 2 years, and then COVID happened, and not having that structure affected her because before that, even though she lived independently, somebody was watching and trying to giving her ideas of what she needed to do, and she was able to follow it. But now those people were no longer there. And so she's in, and we're happy to help you, because she wanted to help, but she just didn't know how. And so we actually at CARD now, we've been working with adults some. And, you know, it's a little bit different because a lot of our high functioning adults are working. They have jobs, or, you know, they're in school or whatever it may be. But I encourage you to, you know, you could go in and, you know, get a referral, whether it's through Autism Speaks by state, or, you know, Autism Society America probably has lots of referrals about which doctors have the experience. And then, you know, go in and just be very frank and honest about what you're asking.
And I just want to say that we've got a great friend of the show that I just was talking to the other day. She's an adult woman on the spectrum who was diagnosed as an adult on the spectrum after her 2 daughters were diagnosed. She's agreed to come on the show, so I'll let you know when that's going to be. But I think she'll have some great insights for you about what it was like to actually start to think that she might be on the spectrum, have the courage to come forward, go through the process, and how her life has changed for the better as a result of going through the process. Okay, we had somebody, and I've lost it in the crawl, but basically the person who was asking the question about somebody getting worse in ABA said that her daughter was getting ABA for a 7-month period. And during that time, the ABA provider was withholding bathroom privileges. I'm having trouble even saying it because I want to go on record as saying that's not just bad ABA, that's abuse. That should be reported. That is not okay. That is not a part of an ABA program, period. Let alone, it certainly wouldn't be a part of a quality ABA program. I am so sorry to hear that happened to you and to your child, but there is a governing board, the BACB, and you should report them. That is not okay. That is ever, I can't think of a circumstance in which that would be okay. But I would hate to think that would turn you off of good quality ABA forever. And that they're saying that as a result, she's regressed and wouldn't leave the house for months because she was afraid she was going to have to go back. She stopped eating and sleeping. And Evelyn, I don't know if you want to say something, but as I'm sure that you're terrified now, but a good quality ABA program actually would help her to overcome her phobias. Now, you just would want to do it with somebody aware of the fact that this has happened in a previous ABA provider. Evelyn, anything you want to add?
I did see something also about doing CBT. CBT is good because, it's a cousin of ABA. But many times cognitive behavioral therapists, if they don't have experience with people on the spectrum, they're speaking too abstractly for people on the spectrum. And that I would want to see, is that person talking at a level that's above your child? And then what's going to happen is your child's just going to, what happens is these therapists suggest things, and then the person themselves just takes it as a rule. And you don't want that to happen either. Because if they are truly on the spectrum and there is some kind of language issue, like understanding, people on the spectrum tend to like the black and white, the concrete, and abstract is really difficult to understand. So a lot of times people will go the CBT way, but if they don't have the vocabulary and the comprehension of the concepts being discussed in CBT, it might not be helpful either. And actually, I've had kids come in and have all sorts of wrong definitions from CBT therapy they've had. And it wasn't that the CBT person didn't know what they were doing. It's just that they took an assumption that person with ASD understood everything they were saying. So you have to be careful on both ends too, in terms of what you're discussing. ABA is so helpful for everyone. I see that, but you do need a good ABA program who's going to look at your child as an individual, see what their strengths and weaknesses are, figure out what the priority is for that child, for you, from their experience, from research, put it all together and be able to address teaching and the addressing problem behaviors in a very methodical way. That's a good ABA program, is really looking at the whole picture. If your child has other comorbid diagnoses, being able to collaborate and working with other professionals on your team so that everybody is working in a manner that's just increasing the quality of life for that child or that person, no matter how old they are or what skills they have.
There you go. We've got a lot of questions here. And Traven, if you can find the one for me where they said that their daughter was just starting to add more words, because that's the one I wanted to get back to and I can't. But lots of questions about how do we know if ABA is right for a child? What resources are there to educate families? Obviously, there's autism-live, but I appreciate that there's more and more mainstream stuff in the entertainment industry that is allowing people to get an entree into certain types of autism. You just want to be careful that when you have a family member who knows nothing about autism, and if you say to them, oh, well, go and watch The Good Doctor. Well, that's great, except that The Good Doctor is one type of autism. And if your child doesn't have that type of autism, that person is going to think, oh, that's all autism, right? So be careful which thing that you turn them on to. There are novels that they can read. There are shows that they can watch. There are more and more actors on the autism spectrum that are being featured in roles. I love Kobe Bird because he plays roles on television, and some of them are, teenagers with autism. Some of them are not. And then he'll do interviews. And so he plays them as different individuals who have different challenges and different strengths. And so I'm loving watching Kobe Bird. I would encourage you to check out his Instagram and see, but that's Kobe. That's one type of autism. And we're trying to tell people there's more than one. But how do you know if your child is right for ABA, Evelyn? Because I'm going to say it's right for everybody, not just your child. It's right for you. It's right. Olympic athletes use ABA.
Well,
so
research is, it can help everyone, but I have to say not every family will accept ABA. Okay, so families may come in, they come in for an intake, and I always can help the child. Every child that comes through, in adult, whatever, it's like there's things that we can do. ABA can be effective. There's a ton of research on it. I've had a lot of experience it. But I have to say that usually it is the family who may not want ABA. And so, so like when we do an intake, we talk to the family and let them know what ABA truly is, because it is giving up a lot of how maybe you think you should parent, or maybe the culture in your family. And the thing is, a good ABA program will help try to work with the cultural part. But I have to say that there are people who come in who just cannot, just for whatever reason it is, they have a hard time accepting ABA as something that's going to be good for their child. And so that does happen. But if you're talking about just purely any person who comes in, whether small or adult, ABA can work, because ABA looks at the individual child. There's not one curriculum for everybody where you do the same thing. We look at you and say, like, what are the things that are not making you not functional right now? What are the things that are keeping you from having the best life that you can? And then being able to program in that way, and being able to use reinforcers, so things that really motivate the person to get things done. ABA, when it's done right, most of our families, patients love it, because it's like the first time they really understand how it works. I do this and this is what I get in return. When they don't like it, it's I have some teens who don't like it, and I always say that it has more to do with the deficit they have, because maybe a lot of our people that come through have a black and white view. So like the first time a kid told me, I couldn't understand why he didn't like math, because he was so good at it. He was like 7 years old and doing almost calculus, but he kept saying he was bad at math. And we worked on language, and then by time he got, it took about 1.5 years, he looked at me and I said, why don't you like math? And he said, it's the only time the teacher comes by and tells me to erase something. And that means I failed. And then I was like, no, this is a flexibility understanding issue. And it was like he either was successful and perfect, or he failed. And that's the part that needed to be addressed, because he was like, if you tell me I have autism, it means I failed. And so I don't want autism, and I don't want therapy, because if I have therapy, that means I have autism. And but it took like a good 1.5 years. And this is like a child with a very high IQ, lots of, could talk to you, no problem coming in, but he couldn't tell me what he thought. He couldn't tell people what he was really thinking. And it took a good amount of time to get him to have the language to be able to tell someone what he was thinking. And so we do get teens who come in who don't want therapy because it means something's wrong with them. And no, that's not it. It's just that this is something, the way that you learn is different. And there are some things that are blocking you, and we can teach you how to unblock you so that you can be successful and go on your merry way, whatever way that is. And sometimes that is, but most of the time ABA is very effective.
Yeah. Yeah. But you have to do enough of it, and you have to do it often enough.
Yeah.
And you have to ride through those extinction bursts that Evelyn was talking about. Hey, we've had somebody write in about having difficulty getting their child to wear their prescription glasses. They've offered him a reinforcer of lollipops, but no matter what they've done, he'll only leave the glasses on for 5 minutes, and they'll take any suggestions.
Okay. So first of all, I want to make sure that the glasses are comfortable enough, that there's not a sensory issue. Because sometimes there's just the sensory issue on their head or their face. And then that's where you need to actually desensitize more of like the feeling. And so you want to work with either an ABA person or maybe an OT to work through the desensitization of just being okay to have something on their face and their ears. And maybe it might be finding different kinds of glasses too. I know for me, when I wear my glasses, they do get uncomfortable sometimes if I'm wearing them too long or whatever it may be. And so make sure you address those issues first. And then after that, you talked about lollipops and the reinforcement, it works for 5 minutes. you have to methodically, it might be at 5 minutes there, but you need to slowly increase it. And really the whole point of glasses is so they can see better. So if there's something they like to see, they're going to be motivated to want to wear their glasses. And if your child has any kind of visual self-stimulatory behavior, and it might be that they like the way it looks without glasses, and that might be something. Or usually if I'm trying to get kids to wear glasses, I show them visual things that they like, so that they're motivated to wear them so they can see more clearly. And you have to be really patient, and you give all sorts of, the visual motivation, but then you're also giving the lollipops and the encouragement and the vocal and everything. And then after a while, you just work 1 minute at a time or 30 seconds at a time, and you just build up to it, and the kids do it. You just have to have the patience to do it. It's not going to come automatically. If you look at neurotypical kids, you have to motivate those kids a lot of times to wear their glasses too. And it's the same process. They just might understand a little bit more about why they're wearing them, because you can explain a little bit more and they understand more. But it is just being patient, giving them enough motivation. But if you find that visual part, that is going to be the biggest motivation, because they can see it now.
And another viewer is writing in and saying to find somebody that they like who wears glasses as an example, and go, look how cool they look with their glasses. I love that. And tell them they look smart with their glasses on. And, all those compliments and things. Sometimes that works with some kiddos. But I think it's kind of amazing that if they're wearing them for 5 minutes, that means that what you've been doing has been working. And I know as a parent, I'm always so impatient. And, it's that whole idea of, all right, so he's wearing them for 5 minutes now. So tomorrow, can you get him to wear them for 5 minutes and 10 seconds? Because I know you say go slow as a person who's a clinician, Evelyn, and we think, oh, okay, so 5 minutes today, 10 minutes tomorrow, and next week we'll be at the whole thing. But she's really talking about increments of seconds and minutes, you guys. And if you start with 5 minutes and you go to 5 minutes and 10 seconds, before you know it, time will pass. And he'll be wearing them for a half an hour. And then from a half an hour, you might see him forget that the half an hour is up and wear them at 40 minutes. But take it super slow, because I know that's what works for a lot of us. My son has been biting his hand when a demand is placed on him when he is overexcited. I'm really worried it's getting worse.
Well, this is where we talk about ABC data. And what happened before, what's the behavior, and then what did you do? And Shannon can do her. I love your explanation.
I'm origamiing.
The question is, if he bites and you pay a lot of attention to him, or you do something to get him to not bite, that might be reinforcing him, so that he knows if he bites his hand, you will come over, or he'll get away from a task. There's different functions of behaviors. And so you really have to look at the behavior to figure out, why is he really biting? And Shannon, go on, show your.
Okay. So I just folded my paper with my question on it in thirds, right? So that I can, I've got columns and I didn't need a straight edge. And across the top, I wrote A, B, C. And the A stands for the antecedent. That's what happened before. The B stands for behavior, and the C stands for consequence. And you can do this on your phone, or you can carry this in your pocket. And when a behavior happens, so let's say he bites his hand. While the behavior is happening, you're standing there looking at it, but you're thinking in your head, I have to be a court reporter later on and jot it all down. My favorite thing about this is, as a parent, it helped me to deal with the anxiety in the moment, because you know how we all escalate. You see your child biting your hand and you go, what is this horrible behavior? Where did this happen? Is this my fault? Is this going to be, he's going to go to college and he's going to be biting his hand. What if he bites through his hand and we have to go to the we will cycle, right? Instead, you think, okay, what exactly is going here? Okay, he's chewing on his finger, then he moves to his fist, and now, he's doing this, whatever, you're thinking about what the behavior is so you can write it later. Later, when you have a second, you write what the behavior is. Then you write what the consequence was. What happened? Did you say to him, stop biting your hand? Did you take away, something? Did you move things around? Did you let him bite his hand? No judgments. You write what happened as a result of it. Then you go back and you have to be the forensic scientist and think, okay, what happened before? You're already knowing because you wrote in and said it happens when we put a demand on him. But be specific. What time was it? What was happening before? What demand did you put on? And then each incidence, you draw a line and you do the next one, and then you hand this to your BCBA, who then can make so much information out of that. And you will start to see some patterns. You will notice, oh, he's biting his hand more for a demand in the afternoon than he is in the morning. Because I'm not seeing any of them in the morning. Why is that? Did he eat something during lunch that made it harder for him to process? And so the anxiety of that. I mean, the crazy things that come up when you do this, the patterns that you see, it's very educational for us. And it's life-changing when you can hand that to the BCBA because it gives them eyes on the situation. What would you add? That's my parent to parent, but you're the expert. What would you add?
Well, really, it's like what you said. You wrote it all down and you're trying to figure out what it is. Just remember, it might not be one thing. It might be 10. That's the hardest part is like, I may bite my hand because I know you're going to ask me a question at any moment. I may bite my hand because if I bite my hand, you're going to come talk to me and kiss me and hug me and pull my hand. If I bite my hand, maybe now you stop making me do this. Stop eating this food that I don't like, or stop watching the show that you're making me watch, stop playing with this toy, stop interacting with someone. So there's different reasons that the different functions that get involved. And then that's usually when I start telling families that when a behavior won't go away, the first thing I do is do something like this ABC, but it's usually what we call a multiple controlled function, which means there's different reasons and different functions for why a behavior is there. We're trying to pull it all into one, but that doesn't always work. Whenever I look at behaviors that have been there and it just goes up and down, there's a good chance that there's more than one reason why that child is doing this. And so then you really do need to look at each situation and try to figure out why in this situation is he doing this activity.
Okay. And then once you know why they're doing it, there's all different types of interventions. But it's sort of like when something isn't working in your car and you go to the mechanic and you say, I think it's the water pump, right? Because you've formed an opinion. I think it's the water pump, but the person who's fixing your car says, well, I'm going to drive it around the block for a second and see what I hear. And then they look at it and they see before they start taking the water pump out, right? So, and because they want to know what it is because they want to fix it for you. Same thing with your BCBA. They want to figure out what the function of the behavior is. They need to look at it. That ABC data helps them to be able to look at it, helps things to go faster. But you don't want to just jump in and pull things out and go, well, I think it's this. Until you know for sure. All right. I love how you're talking to each other. It's really wonderful. So, Evelyn, they're asking if you can turn your speaker volume down just a little bit because we're getting an echo when I talk. And we think it's your speaker, but we're not sure. So we're going to try it. All right. So a parent has written in and said, my 4-year-old is beginning to say more words and bonding more with us, smiling more, being more loving and making more eye contact. We are doing PECS, speech therapy, and Gemini, and in an autism school. So I think that's wonderful. The one thing I didn't see on your list was doing ABA. And I know that this parent also asked a question about how we feel about the Sunrise program. And so I think that everything that you're doing on this list is really cool. But I would love to see some ABA in there because it is the evidence-based treatment for exactly what you're talking about. I'll bet that you're doing some ABA with the eye contact and with the PECS and in the autism school, but I would love to see a 4-year-old have a bigger program. Evelyn, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, really, we're looking at ABA as it's the only research-backed program, that shows that it's effective and that it's what works. And that's why, when I first started this, I didn't know what I was doing. And, I listened to this talk about, all of these things. But it really is, ABA, it has the research backing across all levels and people on the spectrum of abilities. So that is what works. I know that, people use other programs, but there isn't really a lot of research that is showing the effectiveness across the board in other types of therapy right now. So that's why Shannon she's going to be an advocate just because her son's whole life changed for it. But I think that
my life changed. My life changed too. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, I know it works. I have a lot of kids who are out there now in their 20s and just, living their own life. And there's not very many people out there who can say the same thing. I realize I always say that it's been amazing for me to see. There's just so many. I have so many adults now that I don't even know where they are or who they are. That's how many kids I have just functioning on their own, and their parents, don't. Nobody knows anything really. And I just actually found out one of my kids is at Yale this year. She's a freshman.
Love that.
Dying. When we were laughing because I heard their name just popped in my head, and I typed in just Google. I typed in her name, and she came up in our high school newspaper, list of where everybody's going to school. And I saw a video of her, and she was just talking like, hey, I just want to help people. And I just believe that if you're going to do something, you should just do your best and everything. And I was so proud.
Yeah.
But I just have a lot of those adults now. So
that parent has gone on to say, my son is saying new words every day. He adores flowers, grass, leaves. Can I use ABA and PECS to develop that vocabulary around his interests?
Yes, definitely. If anything, that's going to make him talk more. And there are some kids who do better with the visual icon at the beginning. And it's almost like the entrance into the world of talking out loud. And they learn it with a PEC, with an icon first, and then they start to use it. And if it's something that they love, definitely use it to teach them all the interests, all the words. They need more and more. Even if in ABA programs, they will teach vocabulary. But I always tell parents, you're the one that is with him all the time. So that when they're not in ABA, he has to learn words on his own. And initially it might be an ABA, but then it goes to the parent, and then it goes to himself where he's able to learn words on his own. And so definitely use all the things that he loves. He's going to want to talk about it forever.
I would go so far as to say that's one of the hallmarks of good quality ABA, that you absolutely should be using the things that the child loves and adores, because that's who they are. And we want good ABA should be reinforcing. Good ABA, there's going to be times when it's going to be challenging and frustrating, but ultimately it should be really reinforcing for the kiddos. I love when I'm talking to parents and they go, oh my gosh, my kiddo is so excited to go to the center, or they're so excited when the therapist shows up at their door. And that's the way it should be, folks. That's a hallmark of good ABA. They're going to get frustrated sometimes. Absolutely. There were times that my son cried because he was frustrated. There were times when he would be mad because he couldn't get something. But I would say 99 out of 100 times he was so thrilled when the therapist came to the door, because they were there to play with him and to teach him and to help him grow. And he got all kinds of attention and good, opportunities to play. He loved it. And that's the way good ABA should be. Now, somebody asked a question earlier in the crawl about behaviors, and should ABA be targeting behaviors that are just atypical, or should they only be targeting dangerous behaviors? And I feel like this kind of goes hand in hand, because somebody else said, there's a lot of self-advocates out there who don't like ABA. And I, before I give Evelyn a chance to say, I just want to say this, that I support all the self-advocates in saying whatever it is that they want to say. Their story is their story, and we honor that here on Autism Live. There are self-advocates who have been on this show and said that they had a negative experience with ABA, and I never want to be a part of something where we're trying to quiet those people from telling their story. But your other part of the question was, how do we tell them that ABA is good? And I think we have to be careful in telling them that there is a lot of great ABA out there. But as we've said earlier in the show, not all the ABA right now is great. And I always say to self-advocates, would you like to see the ABA that I'm talking about? And invite them. And if you have somebody that who's like, I don't believe it, please reach out to me and I will find a way for them to see some really good quality ABA, because it's delicious. Absolutely delicious. What do you want to say, Evelyn?
I think like everything that you said is right on, because everybody has their perspective, right? From wherever you come from. And a hallmark skill that differentiates when autism is debilitating is the lack of perspective taking. So that lack of perspective taking, or lack of what they call theory of mind, is really understanding how other people feel. And a lot of times you might have whatever experience that you have, but if you don't understand how other people can see another way and are open to it, it's just going to be very hard to understand that something that you think is bad is good. You know, and that's all of us. Whenever we have an experience that's one way and somebody tells you it's supposed to be good, you say, well, that in my experience, that's not true. But you still believe them for that person, right? That is good. And like Shannon was saying right now, there is bad ABA out there, and there are people who have bad experiences, and that should not be, but it is in every field that you go to. So the research, you have to look at the research and the facts, is that there is good, there's changes that are made, and it's the willingness to open up to say, maybe there is a better way for this. And if you really want to address some type of deficit or want to learn a skill that you really, will change your life, then you need to advocate for yourself to find what will maybe, make a way for you to learn that skill. And if it is something that you think is bad, be open and try to find someone that can help you, and, go through all the facts and discuss and try to figure out, is this helpful? Can this be helpful? Because, it's all about perspective taking and enough to it.
I love this question that somebody just asked. And of course, I just made it go away on my screen. They said, if we're not in America or Canada, how can we educate ourselves to do the same, like ABA, to work with our kids? And this is a great question, and I have great information for you. We're going to talk a little bit about skills in IBT. Evelyn, I'm going to look for my weekly email that tells me what they're offering this week on IBT. But why don't you talk briefly about skills?
Yeah. So back in the day, before the internet and YouTube and all of this, when I used to actually travel all around the world and go and train people, families. We'd have families hire like 3 or 4 or 5 people. I would come in for 2 or 3 days, train them an ABA program, create an ABA program, and then keep in touch with them by mailing videotapes. And it would take a month to get here, and we'd have phone calls, and I would, go through a treatment program. But the internet has now come, and you can talk on the same day through FaceTime and everything else. And I've recovered kids across, in other parts of the world where they are typical functioning adults now. And it really is now, we have skills, which is curriculum. It's the curriculum that CARD uses. And anybody can, get a subscription to it. You go in, you answer a set of assessment questions about, what your child can or cannot do. And then but through the list, it will give you an order of lessons and or level of lessons, and you can choose the things that matter to you. And then there's what we call a behavior intervention plan builder, where you go in and you answer serious questions about problem behaviors, and it will give you an estimate of the function of the behavior and give you ideas of like, do you want to try this? This is a good intervention for you, or maybe you want to try a different way. This doesn't work. Go through, fill it out. You get a little program. You get IBT, which is the training part. Trains you as a parent, trains other people, babysitters, siblings, whoever it may be, to come in and work on the one-to-one ABA technique. And then you put this program into place. And then if you have a BCBA who can call in or telehealth in and watch and help you plan and help put things together, that's the best part. But if you don't, and you're someplace where there's no BCBA access, you can't. We have families who fully run this just by using IBT and skills together and have great outcomes with their kids.
There you go. So every week they send me an email to let me know offers that they're making available during COVID to families around the world. So this week, they said for our ABA parents and guardians, we will continue to offer free IBT, that's the Institute for Behavioral Training, e-learning courses. This week, they're offering parent communication and socialization. So those e-learnings are for free this week. Get your pens ready because I'm going to give you a phone number in just a minute so that you can get these free trainings. They're online. Anybody can do them. Some of them are also in Spanish, but not enough yet. But most of them are in English. For teachers, and so if you're a parent and you want these for your teacher, you can hook them up as well. Or if you're a teacher, you can hook yourself up. They're offering their IBT Educator e-learning module, Educator Behavior Management. And it's available for free this week, which is like amazing. Everybody should like get this for their teachers for Teacher Appreciation Week and just say, I got this for you. Here's the link to it. They also are continuing to offer their Registered Behavior Technician 2.0 training course free for the parent audience on a case-by-case basis. So what you'll do is you'll call the phone number, and if you want the RBT training, that's what therapists, it's the beginning, it's the e-learning training that they have to do before they become a registered behavior technician. I want you to understand that there's more that they have to do. There's a certain number of hours they have to do to get the certification, but you can do the training portion of it online, and they will give that to you for free on a case-by-case basis, but you do have to call them and say that Shannon sent you. You heard it on Autism Live. Ask for the Shannon Penrod Friends and Family discount. I'm kidding. You don't have to say all that. Just say I saw it on Autism Live. And they're also offering 10% off on all skills products if anything that you want to get on skills, whether it's that behavior intervention tool that Evelyn was just talking about, or the assessment, or the whole thing, 10% off. So here's the phone number. Are you ready? You want to call 877-975-4559. So again, that's 877-975-4559. If you are calling internationally, I want to encourage you to get the WhatsApp to call that, or you can visit them at ibehavioraltraining.com. That's another way, but I can't read what that is. I don't know what that is. Traven sent me a bunch of stuff. I don't know what that is. Okay, so, and if you have questions about any of that, please feel free to email me, s.penrod@autism-live.com. I don't know how to put that in. You can put that on the screen, Traven. I don't know how to do that.
It's on the screen, your name.
Oh, okay. See, my chat is covering it. I can't even see my own face. There we go. So you can email me if you have questions about that, and then I will forward you over to the Institute for Behavioral Training to hook you up with that. So that, and they have more trainings that are available, and they're really low cost. I think they start at $7.50 for a topic. I think the most expensive one is maybe $35 because it's got multiple different things. But there it is, ibehavioraltraining.com. Reach out to them, tell them that Shannon sent you. But that's a way that you can learn about how to do good quality ABA. I want to get to this question that I was going to start at the beginning because I think it goes right hand in hand with what we're talking about. I'm going to summarize, though. This parent wrote in and said that they have a daughter who was diagnosed at 2.5, and now it's a year later. She is verbal and can communicate with a stranger with 90% understanding on each side. She's never attended school because she's too young at this point. And now we're getting ready to start ABA. They were assessed, and their ABA provider approved them for 20 hours a week. I want to start there. Because that makes the top of my head fly off, and I want to make sure that parents are hearing this, because for me, right there, fair or unfair, as a parent looking at research, if you have a 2.5-year-old, it's like if they say they're starting at 20 because they want to ramp her up to 40, I will accept that as good ABA. But if they're saying that a 2.5-year-old only needs 20 hours of ABA, I got questions already about the quality of ABA they're providing. Can they read? Do they understand research? Because the research says across the board, 25 to 40 hours is the window for the maximum amount of progress for this age range. Am I telling anything that's untrue, Evelyn?
Nope. That's,
Okay.
I mean, you want to take advantage, and maybe you have naps or whatever. You just work up to it because those naps will go away.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. But all of us as parents and caregivers should be arguing with, I don't care who the provider is, argue with them on this. We want to be in that window of 25 to 40, and you want to get as close to 40 as you can get. And not only that, you want to learn what they're doing so that every hour that I love Dr. Grant Pichet says every waking hour.
Yep.
So maybe your ABA provider is going to do 40, but the family is going to continue to keep those things going in the hours after therapy. So already I have like issues with why they would say 20 hours. But then they started ABA and they were just hitting COVID when that happened. And so basically what this ABA provider did, and they said who the ABA provider was, but I'm not going to say who it is, but I will give you a hint that part of their name has a holiday in it. Right? In the spring, a holiday in the spring. Okay, but this to me is really upsetting because they gave her great parent training. And I love that. I want to encourage everybody. At CARD, they call it caregiver collaboration. Everybody wants that because you want to do the ABA in the hours that they're not doing it. But that's all they gave her. Because of COVID, they said that's all we can do is caregiver collaboration. And they taught her how to do ABC data collection. They taught her functions and consequences of behavior, antecedent strategies, blah, 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 blah. It was 1 to 2 hours a week. That was great. But now it's 2 months later. They are only having her run the sessions, and she gets to meet with her supervisor once a month. And that's all they want to do. They don't, no one is coming to work with their child. They have her run the sessions and then they will go over the data that she took. And she says her insurance is paying for it. So I just want to say that's not typical. I don't pretend to know how everybody is dealing with COVID, but there are providers out there that are able to give you more than that. And I would be squawking big time at this ABA provider. This is not normal, is it, Evelyn?
No, and there's a lot of people. The world of COVID has really thrown a lot of people in agencies and learning how to figure it out. I mean, I have to say that first month when COVID hit and we had to figure out how to get all our kids therapy because we were working 80 hours a week, a whole set of us, because we were trying to figure out how can we have our kids not lose time. Because for every waking hour that a typical child is awake and learning constantly, ABA, the 40 hours is really to replicate that. Is because your ASD child is not learning typically. So by having therapy and teaching parents, it's to replicate, it's to make the child every waking hour be learning. And that is what a typical child is doing. So that is what the replication is. But really, we sat down, the whole group of us that have been doing this, probably the average years of work was probably 20 to 25 years in the field, and putting together like how can we do this? You know, families that didn't want the social distancing, we had to close our centers. You know, some families that were okay with people coming in, we reduced the number of people going into homes. So, and with all our staff, we said, we gave them all the protocols. And so they come in with, PPE gear and everything. And then there's telehealth, and telehealth can be very effective. And then maybe the parent has to be there to kind of do the compliance to stay focused. But the therapy was coming through the screen. They were the ones planning, doing the trials, teaching them how to play. And so yes, there was times when the therapist had to prompt the parent to like go get the items that were needed, for whatever they were doing or to place things. But the parent wasn't doing the therapy. It was coming through telehealth. And the parent had to follow instructions of what, when there's items that had to be put in place in front of the child that couldn't be done through the screen. But we have found that with all our telehealth therapy has been very effective for many, many of our kids. And then we have had people go into the home and just reducing the number of people going home, and, respecting the safety issues that do, if there was somebody in the household that was in jeopardy of seeing somebody, we didn't do home-based. If the family wasn't comfortable, we didn't do it, there's a lot of things that can be done, and therapy can be given during this time. And unfortunately, COVID is the normal, at least through next spring for sure, in terms of safety. So there's
I want to chime in here though, and just say that it's so important that we learn these things as parents, and it's important that we be able to do everything with our child. But when insurance is paying for it, somebody else, because she's saying, I get left alone during therapy. That's not when insurance is paying for it. That's just your life, and you will do that. And that's a good thing. And it's great that you're getting all that training. But when insurance is paying for it, someone else is there. They might be talking to your child, or they might be talking to you, or they might be talking to both of you. But if they're getting paid, they have to be there.
If they're getting paid for therapy, the code is implementation.
Yeah.
They're implementing. And then if they're a BCBA, they're supposed to be modifying your treatment plan. So if your insurance is paying for the different sources, if they're paying for that one-to-one therapy, you are not implementing the therapy. Somebody else's, you might be making sure this child stay focused, and you might be moving objects around, but you're not the one doing the therapy if your insurance is paying for the one-to-one.
Okay, we are past time. I just have to say, for the parent who wrote in and said that they've got a 1-year-old that has already got a diagnosis and they want the best result, and they're saying that I want to know more about diet and training. So definitely that IBT that we were talking about, and skills to be able to help you if you're not near an ABA provider. But 1-year-old is not too early to be having somebody, ABA consultant, because you're just going to catch them before they get further behind. That's not too young. But you want somebody good. You don't want somebody who doesn't know what they're doing and doesn't know how to deal with a 1-year-old. When you're talking about all the diet stuff, I really want to encourage you to go to tacanow.org. tacanow.org. That stands for the Autism Community in Action Now.org. They're getting ready. Next week, they will start their fall conference. They're doing it all online. It will be every day in the month of October. I think it's $50 to register, but you get so many things, and it's every day for the entire month, 31 days. And they are the people who, it's all run by parents, and they are the people who really have done the most to gather resources about diet and dietary intervention and things like that. And they will have experts from around the world presenting, and you get all the conferences for $50. It's crazy. So it's tacanow.org. I want to encourage you. We don't get any kind of a kickback from it. I'm just giving you the information. It is $50, I believe, to register now. There was early registration. Yes.
Can I just throw in? I see a question about the neurologically divergent people to socially acceptable neurotypical.
Yes.
Somebody cannot function in society. You are not respecting them. If you can teach them the skills so they can function and they can do what they want, and they're able to access everything so that they can choose what they want, that is really respecting somebody for who they are. People that only see one thing, and if they can't function and they're having a lot of problems, you want to help them so that they have the choice. And that's really what ABA is. It's giving a person, teaching them what it all is, and then they have the choice on whether they're going to do it or not. If they don't have the choice, it's not fair.
My favorite example, because a lot of people will say to me, there's, because of all the negative ABA that's out there, let's take, for instance, this, hand flapping. And people go, well, this isn't dangerous, so why do you need to stop hand flapping? Well, the truth of the matter is we all have some sort of self-stimulatory behavior. We all do. And we use it in different ways to calm ourselves down, or to help us stay focused, or to keep ourselves awake, whatever. I do all kinds of things. If we had the camera on my whole body, you would see all the stims that I do during the show. Good ABA is not trying to get rid of stims. Good ABA is saying, what is this? How is this helping you? Can we make it be a way that allows you to get the same thing from this, but you can pick up a pen and write? Because if you're doing this, you're not able to write at the same time. And there's going to be things in school where we're going to want you to write in order to communicate some of your ideas. And my favorite story at Card was the little boy who was doing this all the time. And Card looked at this and said, what is functional about this? What does this young man get from this? How can we take this and have it be a way that helps him to express himself? So this went to this. They put drumsticks in his hands, and he is an 18-year-old who is touring right now with his band because his CD is out. And he will tell you, and you can look him up. His name is Logan Shepherd, and look him up online. He will tell you that, ABA helped him to be able to do what he wanted to be able to do. They didn't change who he was. They didn't take anything away from him. He had this need, right? But he channeled that into something that helped him, that helps him communicate, helps him be who he is. And
but it also helped him. He knew when to control it.
Yes, there's that too. The choices, because obviously there are stims that we all have that we can choose when and how we participate in them. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot for today, and we didn't get through even a third of the questions. For those of you who did write in questions and comments that we didn't get to, I apologize, and we kept you 10 minutes past the time. Evelyn, yeah. We adore you. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget, you guys, tomorrow, if you were interested in this conversation, tomorrow is going to blow your mind. We have someone on tomorrow about a new autism center that's opening literally in the background of where I grew up as a child. And it's Inclusivity Center, where they're going to be doing ABA with compassion and mindfulness and a whole bunch of other things. You're not going to want to miss the discussion. We're having Dr. Noor Syed join us tomorrow to tell us about that new center. Thank you, Evelyn Kong. We adore you. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm so excited to be here with you this morning. We're trying out a new platform, so be patient with us while we explore this new platform on Restream. We've been doing Zoom for the last 6 months, but we're trying it out. Please write in and tell us. We have a new chat as a result of having this new platform, so we have an easier, more expeditious way to read your comments if you're watching us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Periscope. So welcome, though. I am so excited and a little nervous this morning and a little emotional, because today is like this epic full circle moment for me. We've got a great guest who's going to be on with us in just a little while. Dr. Noor Syed is going to be talking with us about a very special new place that has, I don't know if they've officially opened yet, But in Saratoga Springs, which is my hometown, it's where I grew up, Saratoga Springs, New York. And not only is it my hometown where they put this center, but it's literally being built in the backyard of the neighborhood that I grew up in, which is like, it makes me emotional, you guys. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody else but me, but it's sort of those, those little messages you get in the universe about how it all starts to make sense at a certain point. There are little markers along the way where you go, oh, right, I'm right where I'm supposed to be, and things are happening the way that they're supposed to happen. And it all sort of makes sense. I can't wait to sometime when COVID is over, visit the center, because not only is it being created in the backyard of the neighborhood where I grew up in Saratoga, it is also a very special place with very special ideals that make my heart want to rupture because it's so good. So I'm going to wait and let you hear from Dr. Syed about some of those things. But, if you're watching the show yesterday and we were talking about good quality ABA versus a lot of other kinds of ABA and treating individuals with the respect and the dignity that they deserve and being respectful of neurodiversity and helping individuals to become who they're meant to be, not forcing them to be like the rest of us are. If those are ideals that you espouse, then hang around for this hour because we're going there. We are going there. And I'm saying good morning to Kelly. Thank you for being the first to write in on a live feature. Hey, we are going to be with you live for the next hour in a lot of different configurations. And let's talk about some of the different places. Look at Traven with all these cool new graphics that he's got going on. So we are going to be with you live. And if you're watching us live, chances are that you're watching us live on Facebook or YouTube on our homepage, which is Autism Live, or you might be watching us on Twitter or Periscope. And we're thrilled to be in all of those different places. Each one of them has a method of writing in. Now with this new feature, we're much quicker and much more responsive with Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Periscope. If you're watching when it's not live, I really want to encourage you to write in your questions on autism-live.com. That is still up and working. It's just not as efficient live. I got to be honest with you. And also, if you're watching us recorded, you could be watching on any of those places that we just mentioned, or you might be watching us on iTunes, or you might be listening to us on iTunes, on Apple Podcast, on Spotify. See, I can't even remember all of them. iHeartRadio, Ghana, Amazon Music, which is new and starting any day now, Audible, or Deezer. We are free and a free download on all of those different places. If there's a place that you like your podcast and it's not listed here, please write and tell us because we want to be there. We just have one criteria, and that's that it has to be free to the person who is watching. We are not, there's no cost to watch our show. We feel that that's a really important. We're going to hold on to that until we can't anymore, right? We've been doing this now. We are approaching our 10-year anniversary of doing this show, which is very exciting. So thrilled to be here with you this morning and on this auspicious occasion, because as I said, we're going to be talking to Dr. Noor Syed, who is from SUNY Empire State College. And the new center is called the Center for Autism Inclusivity. Stop. How much do I love that? Just stop. It just makes me so happy. I want to weep. Anyway, I'm very excited to be here with you this morning. We always have wonderful experts here on the show, but we would like to remind you that I'm not one of the experts. That's not what my deal is here. I am a very proud mom of an individual who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. I'm so fortunate. I'm so lucky. And I remember that every single day because my child, we lucked out. And that's really what it was. But once we lucked out, we worked really hard and he worked the hardest, right? And he got the very best of intervention. Everybody always talks about early intervention, early intervention, early intervention. My family is living proof of how important that can be if you're getting the good quality early intervention. And so my son is now 17. He's a senior in college and we're applying to colleges. Yes, in COVID, it's so much fun. And it is. Don't ever let me get away with complaining about things that I dreamt about and thought were off the table for us and are very, very much on the table for us. So my deal here is that I want you to get as lucky as I was for the things that you need and want. And when I say you, we'd say this all the time, that our show is for the really large autism community, which starts with individuals at the very center of it, who are individuals who have been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. They are the living, breathing heart of our community. And we certainly include them and ask them for their opinion and for their voice constantly to guide us. But within that community, we also include everyone who loves those individuals, because we know that that is a much larger community, and that when we speak with one voice together, we get much further. We're not going to agree on everything. We cannot agree on everything because there's too many individuals in this community that need different things, and we must be mindful of that. However, we will agree on a lot of things, and that's respect and dignity and opportunity. That individuals on the autism spectrum deserve all of those things, especially opportunity to love who they love, to dress how they want to dress, to be who they want to be, to communicate how they want to communicate, to work where they want to work, to live where they want to live. The list goes on. We can agree about those things. We might disagree about a bunch of other things, but I think that's one of the beauties of our diverse community. So that's who we're talking to here. Our mission is to provide information and inspiration. And if we got that coming up a little later on. But remember, I'm not one of the experts, but I like to say I have an informed opinion, having covered autism from a journalistic standpoint in shows like this for well over a decade now, and being somebody who's been in the center interviewing all kinds of people in the autism community. Yeah, I have an opinion, and it's an informed opinion, I like to say, and I'm willing to share it at the drop of a hat, but I'm not an expert. We have to be clear about that. But boy, do we have a good expert today. Yeah. But on Thursdays, we like to start the show before our expert with our little workout, something we call the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani are those experts talking about? Why do we need to know this term? Why should we have to learn it? Hey, I'm saying hi to a bunch of people, saying hello to Michelle, Varsha, and Kirsten. Yay! So thrilled that you guys are here. By the way, you guys can all be writing in whatever the chat format is that you're watching. We'd love to hear from you. But anyway, as I said, jargon of the day. What we like to do is first give you the actual the actual definition that the experts have, and a lot of times we just like to make fun of that because it's something that we can't access, and that's just my hobby, making fun of things that no one could possibly understand. Then we give you a working definition, which hopefully will help you to begin to understand. Not completely. Don't beat yourself up if you don't get it the first time, because these terms will cycle back in and out again. So today's term, as you can see on my little chalkboard, it says idea, right? But that's not quite, we're talking about IDEA, which was a great idea, right? If only it were fully funded. Let's say that. So let's take a look at what our actual definition of IDEA is. IDEA stands for the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It all starts to make sense. This is federal legislation. It's a public law. We even gave you the number here. Passed in 1997 as a reauthorization of the Education of the Handicapped Act, passed in 1975. This provides mandate and some funding for certain services for students who have disabilities. So when your child has an IEP, which is an individualized education plan or program, depending on which state you're in, it is because of the legislation of IDEA. And the problem that we always run into, let's take a look at our working definition so we can get a little bit more honed in on this. IDEA is the law of the land in regards to education. So this is what empowers you, if your child is on the autism spectrum, to have that individualized education plan. This is what is legislated so that every individual in the United States has the right to a free, appropriate public education. We call it FAPE. Free, appropriate public education. Everyone has a right to that. We need to remember that before these laws were passed, that if your child was on the autism spectrum and it was time to go off to kindergarten, the school would say, no, sorry, we don't deal with that. You go on home and stay home with that child and figure it out on your own. And that's barbaric, right? And here in the United States now, because of this law, your child is entitled to that free, appropriate public education. But here's the rub. Never since it was passed into law has it been fully funded. Never. There's never been any politician on either side that fully funded IDEA. It's expensive. It's expensive, but it's the law. And until someone says we're going to fully fund this, it means you have to go in as a parent or as a teacher or whoever you might be that's watching this. You have to go in and fight. And sometimes it means fighting and taking away funding from something else. And boy, they'll tell you that at the IEP too, right? Unless you got a tape recorder running and they know that they can't do that. Because they're legally not allowed to tell you that your child can't have an appropriate service because of funding, even though we all know it's the truth. And we're constantly at loggerheads with school officials because there's no way that they can fully fund it. They haven't been given the money. So it's like a shell game. They have to move money around to try to figure out how to give your child. And if you've ever been in this circumstance where you've been at an IEP meeting and thought, wow, I thought these people wanted to really help my child. Why does it feel like they're trying to skimp out of something here? It's because it's not your imagination. It's because they don't have enough money. They've not been given the full funding to give every single child what they need. This is appalling. And I want to tell you that in these last 40 days leading up to the election, we're going to talk more about this and be looking at the different candidates, both at the very top and all through, all down the ticket about who is supporting fully funding IDEA. Or do they have a different idea? But we want to be open to all ways of thinking about this. But if we have a law that says it's there and that has to be provided and we don't fully fund it, what is our expectation of what is going to happen? It becomes a fist fight. And it becomes something that raises the anxiety of everyone. It's former teacher here. It's hard for the teachers. It's hard for the administrators. It's certainly hard for the caregivers. But let's not forget who it's hardest for is the kiddos, the students, right? IDEA, it's a very important thing and something we should be considering as we move forward in these next few months. And certainly when you go to put in your ballot. Okay. That's our jargon for today. Moving on, we always have a question of the day for you. And I'm asking you guys, what's the best thing you learned at school? I've been thinking a lot about Saratoga because I'm a graduate of Saratoga High School. That's how much I'm from Saratoga. And our guest is going to be coming to us from Saratoga today. Woo! So excited. But I've been thinking about some of the amazing teachers that I had in Saratoga at Saratoga High School. And I want to give a shout out to Nadine Stahl, who is now Nadine Stahl White. And what she taught me, she was a great English teacher at Saratoga High School, but also was a drama teacher. And the things that I learned with her and in her class have stayed with me through all the years. And it's part of the reason why I went on to get my BA and my MFA in theater, because of the excitement that she brewed in her classroom. And let's face it, a good teacher lasts a lifetime. Now I'm going to get emotional. I watched my son when he was in 9th grade. This is a young man who he used to have IEPs to deal with writing, to help him because it was the most aversive thing in the world to him. He didn't want to write. It was the last thing he wanted to do. And then he had the right teacher. The right teacher in his 9th grade class lit the fire and ignited his imagination. And so he is now applying to schools for writing programs and is a beautiful writer. It's the right teacher. It's all about the right teacher. And we have a topic this week. So we've already talked about the question of the day, but our topic this week is our salute to educators. The difference that a teacher can make in a classroom is just amazing, right? I don't think I know a single person And I'm asking you guys, let's look back at who's the teacher who lit the fire in you? Who's the teacher who made the difference? Who's the teacher who said the thing that's still with you, that echoes in your being and is a part of your everyday? Who built you up? Who let you know you could do it? Who broadened your horizons? Who expanded the world for you so that you could find your passion? Let's give a salute to all of those educators, because it's not easy work and it certainly doesn't pay well. So these are people that are there because they're passionate about it. And yes, we'll meet some educators along the way who aren't up to the task, who will come in, educate for a couple of years and go, oh, this wasn't what I thought it was. And they will leave. And there are some people who stick around because they like having the summer off, but that is the vast minority. I think the huge majority are teachers who stay there because they are passionate about educating and shaping young minds to be able to go out into the world and make their own decisions. So we love us some educators. So thrilled today, as I mentioned, we've got this great guest. Feel free, you guys, by the way, to throw anything into the chat. See, I'm like wet and weeping. But our guest today, I'm very excited about this. This is Dr. Noor Syed. She's joining us right now on our new platform. She's an educator, assistant professor of applied behavior analysis, ABA, which we talk a little bit about here on the show. She's a clinical coordinator and founding director for, drumroll, the Center for Autism Inclusivity. And we're very excited that she's joining us from SUNY Empire State College. So Dr. Syed, are you there with us? New platform. There she is. Hello.
Hello.
I am so excited that you're here. I've been so looking forward to this interview. I'm like emotional and Twitter-pated about it, but I'm so excited that you're here. So welcome, first of all. And for people who aren't familiar with your college or your program, tell us what it is that you're doing and what your hopes are.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I was smiling ear to ear when you were going over the jargon of the day and all the amazing things that you were saying. It's my privilege. And I'm a certified general and special education teacher as well. And I taught in the classroom for 10 plus years, and it was the best time of my life. And so I'm so grateful to have parents like you who make the job worthwhile just behind the kids. They're the only ones that make it a little bit more worthwhile. So I'm very, very grateful to you for having me here.
Well, I'm grateful to you because you're about to do something that is amazing. So tell us what it is you're doing.
So we are doing we have a set of goals, missions, visions, and values is the way I think of the Center for Autism Inclusivity and the ABA program. So SUNY Empire State College is embarking upon this really exciting endeavor of starting a Center for Autism Inclusivity that's going to be based on research and will really seek to add to the workforce of professionals who are compassionate, that use behavior analytic principles. We are really hoping to make resources low cost or free for families in ways that are accessible. And one of the things I'm super excited about is that our initiative that we've just embarked upon this year is really seeking to make SUNY Empire State College an autism supportive community. And so that is just thrilling because we know that there are programs that exist and there are great pathways that you can consider. But what I think is really unique about SUNY Empire is that it's not a pathway that we're looking at per se. It is really taking an assessment of the college as a whole, undergraduate and graduate, and figuring out what supports should really be in place for students who identify as neurotypical, identify as autistic. And to do that, we're really reaching out to the students. We're reaching out to those who are autistic because they are the experts. They know what they need to be successful, and I'm here to listen and do the best I can to implement it. And then right alongside with that is we're planning to launch an ABA program fall of 2021. And I'm so excited about this. I know you and I talked quite a bit about those when we chatted earlier. What we're really looking to do there in that ABA program is, one, to make it accessible for those who work full time, have families who can't necessarily be in a classroom for 3 hours, but still get a robust, wonderful program. We're looking to make it as cost effective as possible. So really meaningfully thinking about scholarships, textbook costs, all of the things that go into being a student. And then finally, I think what is so dear to my heart is that we're really thinking about ways to embed compassion throughout the entire program. So we talked about IDEA, and it's amazing how many behavior analysts aren't fluent in IDEA or any of the their subparts, the free and appropriate education, et cetera. And it's really, the onus is on us as educators to teach our students who are coming up in the field about compassion, cultural humility, and sustainability, so that it can be pervasive throughout everything that they do.
Yeah, I'm so excited that there are individuals such as yourself who are looking at this in the way that you're looking at it. For so long, I think back to the pioneers of parents who started having their kids do ABA and what the things that they went through. And it feels like we've gone through all these different phases. But when my son was getting ABA and getting great quality ABA, we were so lucky because we had funding through the state of California, and a lot of families didn't have that. And all we prayed for was insurance. Could insurance please cover ABA so that more people could have access? Well, now I can't even believe in my lifetime that we have that. But then the next issue was that as all these people needed trained professionals, board certified behavior analysts, and therapists to come in and be on their team, it became apparent that there aren't enough good training programs. And I would go so far as to say not enough good training programs that are reminding people that while you're using a science, you're using a science on living, breathing people. And they need to be seen as whole individuals that have individual passions and individual ways of looking at things that aren't wrong. But while they're looking at things this way, they need to find a pathway to get done the things that they want to do in this world that doesn't see things their way. And I love, even you're starting with the title and saying inclusivity. So talk a little bit about, because I know that this is a passion of yours, about that looking at individuals as individuals and being humane, and talk a little bit about what else you've got going on there.
Oh, absolutely. So I think you speak to that so well, right? The importance of seeing people as individuals. And I think something that I hear a lot from my students and from those with whom we work is, this idea that we're trying to normalize people who are with autism, and I want to be very inclusive with the language, those who identify and say, I'm not a person with autism, I am autistic, I am an autistic individual. And so it's really important for us to be aware of, when we think about behavior change programs, that we're not thinking about these programs to benefit ourselves. We're thinking about, what does the client want? What is the family looking for? What resources are available in the environment? And what is really the goal of it? Are we, if we're saying like vocal, self-stimulatory behavior and we're thinking, we want to decrease that to 0 levels. Is it because it's dangerous? Or is it because, someone might see that and think, I don't understand what's happening. That's a really fine distinction that we have to be aware of, because if it's not dangerous and it's not harmful and it's preferred, then we need to work together to figure out what would this behavior change program be, if it even needs to be a program. And so to that end, we're starting to do research, and I've had interviews with students in college who are autistic, who identify as autistic, students who are hoping to go to college, who have finished college, and caregivers of parents, or caregivers who have children who hope to go to college. And, just these one-on-one interviews so they're comfortable, it's a safe space. And I really say, what can we do to support your child to go to school, to support you to go to school? And if you could have this perfect college setting, what would it look like? Because we're going to use that to drive what we'll do. We'll take baseline assessments, from everything to registering and getting financial aid to interacting with your mentor. Is that an easy process? If not, how can we make it easier, right? How can we streamline it, which would help everybody? We want to set up where we're planning to execute a peer mentorship program by fall of 2021 so that there is opportunity to socialize. And we also are going to really have a social kind of group where people can just have a safe space to interact with one another. And trying to get ready for the workforce too, job interview skills, workplace skills. Those are all things that we are launching, as we speak, which is there's so many balls in the air, but it's all necessary because it's not enough for me to just think, okay, we'll take care of the onboarding process and then that our work is done. No, we really want to make this a place where someone says, I'm so proud to go to SUNY Empire. They embrace me for who I am. And I've heard about this ABA program and I sat in on a class and, they're talking about autism, like about people, not exactly as you say, not just as science. They're talking about the humans in human services. And that is something that we are so dedicated to.
Well, it's so needed. Let's be honest. It's something truly epically needed in our environment. So you're starting, I love the fact that you're starting with the entire college and you're looking at the entire college environment and making it inclusive so that anyone can go through any of your programs. But then you are really creating an ABA program starting next fall where people can learn ABA. And is it ABA for autism or ABA in general at the college?
So that is a fantastic question. I will say that in New York State, your audience is probably aware of this, particularly those from New York. It is the only state in the United States of America that has a really strict scope of practice in that licensed behavior analysts and board certified behavior analysts are legally only allowed to work with people medically diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And that's incredibly problematic because we know ABA is not just a therapy for autism, it's in everything that we do. It's literally the reason why we stop at a red light and we go at a green light. It's pervasive in our everyday lives. So we are really trying hard to lobby so that we can change this scope. That being said, to become a master's program that bears licensure, there is a very heavy emphasis on autism because it's required by New York State. But me being me and working with the amazing, colleagues that I am, we're embedding in there robust experiences so that someone can understand that this is applied behavior analysis in organizations. This is an understanding of how to train animals using applied behavior analysis, because it wouldn't be fair to our students, I think, to just have one exposure. As you talk about, it wouldn't be a well-rounded practitioner or clinician. So while we are bound by some of the state regulations, we are making and putting those in there so that people can really see ABA comprehensively.
And I got to say, we got to get to some legislators in the state of New York, because what's ironic is that we're always trying to explain to people on the show that ABA is not just for autism, because I think that families, when you have a kiddo on the autism spectrum, that's how you get introduced to ABA and you go, oh, ABA is an autism treatment. Well, the truth of the matter is that ABA, I would say that because I've been to some of the ABA conferences, and it's maybe now about 50% autism and 50% is in businesses and in real life and Olympic athletes. The principles of ABA are used in nursing homes. They're used in there are factories that use the principles of ABA to try to make an environment in which their employees feel better and are more productive as a result of them. So now in 2020, we're cresting about 50% of the field is about autism. And I expect that it will just grow because it happens to be wildly successful with individuals with autism. But it's not without some controversy. We should say that there are people, and this was brought up on our show yesterday, there are a lot of self-advocates, people who identify themselves as self-advocates who are not fans of ABA. I don't know how you feel about this, Dr. Syed. I always stand by. Everybody gets to tell their story and to have their say and to say whatever they need to say with what their experience is. I'm always trying to remind people that all ABA experiences are not the same and that a good quality ABA program looks absolutely nothing like some of the things that are being put out there as ABA right now. And my challenge to self-advocates always is I hear what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I'm not trying to take away your experience, but I'd like to expose you to good quality ABA so that you can judge based on that. Because if all you've ever seen is bad ABA, I don't think anybody would want it. But I've been there front row center to see what great quality ABA looks like. And it is amazing. Changed my son's life, changed my life. And I've watched it change so many other people's lives and it did not change who my son was. What I always say is that it was like he was running on a track and other people were running around the track with no problem. And my son had like 13 hurdles in front of him that were not of interest to him. He wanted to get someplace and those 13 hurdles were just making it harder for him. And what ABA did was say, oh, we can move this one out of the way for you. You can run around this one. You can totally bypass this one if you choose. So that my son could run his own race, his individual race. So I'm a huge fan of ABA, but I always support and acknowledge that there are individuals who had a negative experience with badly done, unethical ABA. That's what I have to say. Anything you want to add to that? I don't mean to put you on the spot, Dr. Syed.
No, not at all. I think that you spoke to that so eloquently. And I would just add that I think that there is, exactly as you say, there's bad ABA. And those who feel like their experiences with applied behavior analysis have been negative, I respect that wholeheartedly because they probably were. And I think that, your idea of seeing what good ABA is really critical. I think what I have to say, I think there's an impetus here for us as behavior analysts because to really, that compassion piece to reach out and say, tell me what I'm doing wrong. And that's something that I've been starting to do. I've been trying to, connect with self-advocates. And there are some who don't feel comfortable in speaking with me, and I respect that. I'll ask that anybody who feels comfortable speaking with me, please do, because I want to know what we're doing wrong so that we can fix it. And I want to bring those findings to the ABA community because I have to say that while this might be a bit of a controversial opinion on my end, I don't think we've done enough at all as an ABA field. That we just started talking about compassion and cultural humility in the past few years. And I'm glad we're talking about it now, but I think that it's so much a part of what we do. And, person-centered supports, that needs to be language that we use all the time. So what we need to do a much better job, and I can already see, is saying, what do you care about? What's important to you? And please, please tell us. I just have to kind of say, I'm really pleading here. I want to know what we're doing wrong because I want to help be part of the group that fixes it. Because there is rote, rigid, restrictive ABA that we don't want to see. And then there's a progressive applied behavior analysis, which is, seeing people as individuals, which is actually what I have to say, which is what ABA should have always been. And that really, I think, is, except that some, as you mentioned, are not trained as well, some professionals. So working with the individual, moment-to-moment decisions, saying, if you don't like this, let's change it. Eye contact, it's not everybody needs to make eye contact. In some cultures, it's rude to actually do that. So let's work together and to figure out how we can help you be successful, because we need to create this culture of feedback and this culture of seeking out what we don't know. And that's where we are.
Yeah, I'm always trying to tell people that for me, they always want ABA consolidated down. And I say, imagine it's the best teaching tool, right? And it rewards you for learning. And as a former teacher, and I think once a teacher, always a teacher, I think it's important to teach people skills, but it isn't essential that they you're not going to take every skill that somebody teaches you and turn that into how you live your life, right? But when you learn, you have choices. So it's always interesting to me when somebody will say, well, I'm not going to force my child to speak. I don't, some people communicate without speaking, and, since it didn't develop naturally, we're not going to force it. And while I completely agree that no one should be forced to do anything, I always like to go back to when our children learned how to walk and they stumbled, and sometimes they hit their head and they got frustrated and it was hard. But we knew that with some practice that they eventually, and they may have even have been like, I don't like this because I hit my head, but with some practice that they would gain a skill that they would use the rest of their life at their choice, at their will, that we weren't forcing them to do. And most of us, had a moment when our kids fell and hurt themselves where we were like, oh no, how is this going to go? And had emotions and feelings about it. But we didn't say, that's it. We're going to stop the learning. We didn't say, go ahead, bring in the wheelchair. We're giving up on this because we're going to stop the learning because the learning is frustrating. And we haven't done that with a whole bunch of other things. So I'm a fan of teaching and having teaching be compassionate and rewarding and not forceful and not punitive, but allowing for skills to develop and then letting them choose which skills that they want to use. My son, at a certain point, I remember being at a birthday party with him, and he was trying so hard to connect with the other kids at the birthday party, and he gained a lot of skills, and he was trying so hard to get them to play with them. And there was just a couple of things that he didn't understand socially, so he couldn't quite connect. And I remember him laying on the floor in the foyer of the house that we were in and sobbing and saying, what do I have to do to get them to play with me? And we were able to go back to our ABA team the very next day and say, here's what happened. And within 2 weeks, they had said to him, oh, well, for other people, they see things this way, and teach him that perspective taking. He was like, oh, that's all I had to do to be able to play with these people. Changed his life. Now, he had an understanding in that moment that the thing that was important to those kids wasn't necessarily important to him, but what was important to him was that he could connect with them, and that he now understood their language and said, oh, when I want to, I can switch on this skill to connect with this person. And to me, that's inclusivity. If we could only teach that to everybody, what would the world look like? So that's where I'm coming from with the ABA. And I think that what you have said both here and in our previous conversation about how you want to have people be mindful and compassionate and be looking at this from all different perspectives is very exciting. So let's talk about this. When is it open for people to start applying to your program?
So that is a great question. We're hoping to launch fall of 2021. So for the ABA program, it would be registering next spring and next summer. So I encourage, if anybody has questions, to contact me. Please do. I'm happy to share more about the program. And yes, please sign up for it, because I think that I do believe that it'll be unique in that, one, it's going to be fully asynchronous. That's what we're planning to do, but to do it again super meaningfully, so that you're having a really robust discussion with me, with your colleagues, except we're doing it via video. So it's on your own time. You can record it at midnight after you do the remote learning for the kids, help them with their homework, put them to bed. So I ask that, we really take that leap. If you're feeling like, I don't have time to do this, we will work with you to make it, really match your schedule. And then the center, please reach out to me, now. While we're still a set of initiatives, we do hope to have a brick and mortar, and then we hope to start putting these supports in place spring of this coming school year, which is spring of 2021. So while it'll be a bit tiered, right, we wouldn't be able to change the whole college at once. We're going to do step 1, step 2, step 3, so that we're going to start to see a change in the college, and it's in the way it supports and embraces students who are autistic or who identify as neurodiverse.
And so we have a question about, so the center, will it just be for students that are at the college, or are you going to be treating kids as well? What's going to happen at the center?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now, the center will be focusing on kids at the college, but we are already in conversation with the Anderson Center for Autism, which is located in Statsburg, New York, to open up a clinic. Two, we are working hand in hand with Anderson Center to really start to create practicum opportunities for students who go into the master's program and now need to have the applied experience. But to do that, again, in a way that embraces compassion, embraces sustainability, so that you don't feel like when you leave the program, okay, I'm done, I'm supposed to sit for my BCBA, but I don't know how to supervise, I don't know how to mentor. We're going to embed in their mentorship opportunities, the ability to guide others so that you feel empowered when you leave to start to be a little bit more independent. And so when children too are looking to kind of be part of the center, I invite you to contact me, because we have these great partners such as Anderson. And through that, we want to start that clinic again and do amazing research to see if what we're doing is working. But like, to just hone this point, and I know I'm talking a lot about it, compassionate applied research. If it's research that doesn't make the lives of the children better, then it's probably not research that we're going to engage in. And that research has a place in behavior analysis, and I respect it so very much, and I thank it for all its contributions. This will be different. This is very much the top priority will always be social significance. And like in the classroom, can the teachers actually do this strategy so that it doesn't break down, that gap between research and practice? It's really, this worked for me and it made a difference in my classroom, and then it made a difference with your children. So please kind of jump on board, because we'd love to have you.
And someone else is asking, can anyone nationwide do this program? I want to recommend this to some friends that are educators.
Yes, anyone nationwide can do it. Thank you so much for that comment. I appreciate it. Because it is asynchronous, we are building it so that anybody around the nation can do it. And I'll work with you, right? So if something is due midnight Eastern Standard Time and you need it midnight Pacific Time, that's absolutely okay. And I've had students reach out and say, I'm the single parent and can I do this? Absolutely. And I think too, with it building asynchronous and with a focus on cultural humility, we also hope that it reaches individuals from around the world, because I do a lot of work internationally, so that you're building a community when you're in the classroom of people that are from the United States, but also hopefully around the world, again, to really build a robust, comprehensive, compassionate knowledge of our work.
And when they complete this program, what is the actual degree?
The degree is a Master of Science in Applied Behavior Analysis, and then you are eligible to sit for the New York State licensure exam in behavior analysis, as well as the international certification to become a board certified behavior analyst. Now that certification does change in 2023. The board is no longer certifying people outside of the United States and Canada, but it still will set you up for success for other types of certifications that one can take. And I'm happy to talk our students through that, as well as even really help the students, if they're from a different country, figure out how they can take these principles and utilize those in their countries.
And is it a 4-year program, a 5-year program, or do you design it yourself because it's asynchronous?
That's a fantastic question. So we do want you to go through with a cohort, ideally, because I think one of the most important things about the work that we do is that you build a community of others that you can collaborate with and bounce ideas off of. So there are specific semesters in which classes are offered. That's not to say that, if something happens and you need to kind of take a semester off and come back, we'll welcome you back, but just something to be sort of mindful of. The fastest that you can do it, if you are, full-time, all in, and just have the capacity to do that, would be 1.5 years. We anticipate more students to be part-time because, like ourselves, they work full-time and they have families, other obligations. And so that it might be 2.5 years with summer semesters as well. So we'll work with you to make the schedule be accessible for you, but know that, you can really finish it as quickly as 1.5 years, or if you take a little longer, that's okay too.
And you're a part of the SUNY system. For people who don't know what that is, take a second to tell them I'm a product of the SUNY system. Explain to them what that is.
It is full circle for me too. I'm also a product of the SUNY system. My undergraduate was an ABA with Dr. Romanchik at SUNY Binghamton. So it's so exciting to kind of be this full circle. It is the State University of New York, so it's public schools within New York State. What's exciting about that is that if you are in New York State, the cost is lower, but even if you're out of state, I would venture to say it's one of the more affordable options versus, let's say, a private school where the costs can be a bit different. So that's something that's super exciting about it. And what I think is great too is that you have SUNY Empire, but all the SUNYs work together quite often. So if you decide SUNY is not a fit, or SUNY Binghamton may be not a fit, or SUNY Empire is not a fit, that is okay. We will work with you to find a place within the SUNY system that you feel will work for you.
Which is amazing. My dad worked for the SUNY system, so I really am a SUNY brat. And then I went to SUNY Oswego, State University of New York at Oswego, and eventually went back and taught there. So I really am a SUNYite. But I don't live in New York anymore. I couldn't hang with the winters. I don't know how you guys do the winters. It's crazy up there. But Saratoga is beautiful. And we do need to say that where this center is going to be is in a very specific place. Tell them where it is in Saratoga.
So actually, right now, because we're not a brick and mortar yet, we're set of goals, but we do hope to have a brick and mortar in Saratoga Springs on the main campus of SUNY. Given kind of all the challenges that are happening right now around the world, we're all remote for the fall. So I'm not actually in Saratoga Springs at this time, but we hope to be there, when it's safe to do that. But it'll be in Saratoga Springs. The clinic that we're hoping to launch with Anderson Center for Autism will also be further north because there's a huge need for services. A lot of the services are located primarily downstate, like New York City. So that will be around Plattsburgh. That will be a little bit closer to Saratoga Springs. And what's great about our partner, let's say Anderson Center, they do have services located all throughout northern New York.
Well, wonderful. But, really totally in my stomping ground, my old stomping ground. So at some point when all this COVID mess is over, I'm going to come and visit you when you have your whole brick and mortar and see what you're doing, because I think it's remarkable. We're so excited for you. Where should they go if they want more information?
Please email. You can email me. It's noor.syed@esc.edu. I will answer all the questions that you might have. And if I can't, I will direct you to the person that can. We do have a Center for Autism Inclusivity website that they can access through SUNY Empire's website. But I think for more specific information, I am really happy to help. And I'm happy to chat with you about the program, about our expectations, and hear your thoughts and your feedback. Because again, we really want to incorporate it with your perceptions of what you're looking for your children and for yourselves if you're planning to go to school.
And give your email again one more time, but slower, because people now have their pens ready. Go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. It's noor.syed@esc.edu.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us, and we applaud you for what you're doing. We just need more of this. And I can't wait until people graduate from your program and go out into the field and bring this mindfulness, compassion, and really looking at individuals as individuals. That's a very exciting, we need more of that. We just need more of that.
Thank you so much, Shannon.
All right, you take care.
My pleasure. You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye. We just have a couple of minutes left here, you guys. And so I wanted, I had not asked Dr. Syed if we could ask her individual questions, so I didn't want to put her on the spot to do that. And we have a couple of comments here. Somebody said, my son, 6-year-old, has recently developed an affinity for a cap and socks for at least 1 month. He wears them 24/7 and starts to cry the moment he loses it. Earlier, that affinity for cap and socks was not there. And in light of what we just have been talking about compassion and looking at as an individual, let's talk about the fact that, since COVID has started, are any of you doing something different to comfort yourself than you did before? Is there something that, I was thinking about this morning, actually, about I want to do a thing on the show about what have you ordered to have delivered to your house that was something that is just for comfort? Because I'm going to share with you, I know that there are other show hosts who've been showing that they wear shorts. I'm not wearing shorts, but look what came last night from Amazon. I got to put it right. These fuzzy slippers for me to wear during the show. I know it's summer out and it seems crazy, but in the room that I'm in, I have discovered that I thought for a while, I was like, look at this, I can be barefoot and do the show. But it's not my thing. And putting shoes on doesn't feel right either. But I just for the first time, I'm doing the show in my fuzzy slippers. But what have you guys done recently or changed that is just about a comfort thing during COVID? Because some of them don't totally make sense on paper, but it's something that's giving you comfort. So I don't know why it's this one particular hat and why it's this one particular pair of socks, but I know that what he's communicating through his behavior is there's something about this that I feel uncomfortable when it's not there. And I don't know what that is. We always talk here on the show about finding the function of something, but a lot of times the function of something is that it makes us feel more secure. So, I think we would want to look at that, and I think we would want to be compassionate about it. Obviously, he's not going to be able to go through the rest of his life and wear the same hat and the same pair of socks without them being washed. But for right now, I would be interested in figuring out, I don't know your child's language ability, what he understands, whether washing them will cause him great anxiety. But I would encourage you to be working with your ABA provider, and hopefully you have one who's being compassionate about it and not just try to take the hat and the socks away from him, because there's a reason why he's wanting them. And with good ABA, what we figure out is what that reason is. And if it's not functional, if it's preventing them from doing other things, we find something else that serves the same function before we ever try to take the thing away. So maybe your ABA provider, depending on what your child's skill ability is and what their communication ability is, maybe they'll give him something else that he'll find very comforting. And then from there, we can say, okay, now that you're comforted, can we take and wash the hat and the socks? And maybe we don't take them to the laundry room to do them. Maybe we take them first and just splash a little bit of water and go there. It's so much better. And then they get the hat back. So it's 2 seconds. Maybe then we take the hat and dunk it all the way in water. Then maybe we get them to add some soap and make some bubbles because hat likes the bubbles and it smells good now. Now we get to put the hat back on. But you got to go slow, And I would encourage you to be working with someone about, where the anxiety is coming from, but everybody's having it. If you're not having a little bit of anxiety in COVID, I'm worried for you because I'm afraid it's going to come on you all at once and you won't know what to do with it. And to think that our kiddos aren't having anxiety it's a little, we got to open our brains to the fact that they're little sponges, and not only are they having their own feelings, but they pick up on ours as well. So I think everybody would write in and tell you that we all are having something, and all of our kiddos are too. We're seeing this across the board. Parents are writing in and saying, we've had regression. We're seeing behavior we never saw before. We're seeing behavior we haven't seen in 5 years. But isn't that a little true of us too? I was talking to a friend last night and they said I had a moment where I felt a way I haven't felt, in 20 years. I thought I was past being worried about these kinds of things, but it came on me suddenly. So I think we got to be compassionate about that. I don't want you to panic though. He's not going to spend the rest of his life in the hat and the socks. I think the thing to be more concerned about is how can we help him to deal with the feelings that he's having? How can we help him to feel secure? How can we help him to get comfort from more than just one hat and one pair of socks, right? And then we can work on making sure that the hat and socks get clean. But especially until things change, I wouldn't be looking to take away something that's making us feel better. That's just my opinion. And I think I started the show by saying I'm not an expert. So, but I'm a parent, and I'm a parent who, I feel for you, because it's like, wait a second, where did this come from? And is this going to prevent him from doing other things in his life? I'm sending you a hug. It's not going to prevent him. But, I was saying this to a parent the other day. It's got to be fair. Everything has to be fair for our kids. And that doesn't come from me. That's Dr. Grampiche says that on an hourly basis. When somebody talks about something that their kiddo is doing, and she says, okay, but is it fair? Let's look at it from that point of view. And there's a lot that's going on right now that is not fair for our kids. Woo! You want to sit and do their little distance learning thing for a day, and you'd be like, oh yeah, no, this is not fair. So we have to even it out and make it fair. And sometimes they're going to have anxiety, and they're going to grab a hold of something that feels like it's a little bit of control, that feels like, at least I know when I'm here and I have my hat on and my socks on, I'm okay. I don't know how that got equated in his head, but if that's where he's at, I would try to meet him there as much as possible. Somebody says you are my expert for washing hands. Did you guys see? I don't know if have we shown the video here on that we did. My son shot a video of my husband and I being very strange and weird. It's singing "Let's Do the Time Warp Again," and we changed the words to "Let's Wash Our Hands Once Again." Maybe we could show that tomorrow on the show, Draven. I don't know if we've shown it. I'm not even sure if it's on YouTube. Holding hands. Yes. No, we always hold hands on this show. Si se puede, right? We hold hands virtually. We can get this done. But sometimes we need a reminder of, oh, wait a second. We're trying to teach perspective taking to our kids, but we have to do it first. We take the perspective of, okay, wait a second. Why is my child doing this? And if my child had full verbal ability of an adult who has total verbal ability, what would they be saying to me right now? And in the instance of the hat and the socks, I think that they would be saying, I feel really uncertain right now. I don't know what's going on, but this hat and these socks make me feel like it's going to be all okay. Don't take that away from me, right? And if he could say that, wouldn't we go, oh, okay, well, I want you to feel safe, but let's talk about that. Why are you feeling unsafe? How can we make you feel more safe? How can we help you to get through this? So that, and by all means, when you need it, let's have you put the hat on because we want you to feel safe. So that's where I'm coming from with that. And thank you for writing in about that, because I think we're all going through this on some different level, right? And as adults, we should be talking to each other about that and say, okay, what is it that's making me feel safe right now? Is that a good thing? Is it something that's productive? Is it the most productive thing I can be doing? Because I think we've all gone through different machinations. I'll be honest and say that in the beginning of COVID, I was like, how much can I eat? Because that's how I was feeling safe. And I'm finding that that doesn't have to be the way that I feel safe, but it doesn't mean that I don't do other things to keep me feel safe. That truly spending 20 minutes on the treadmill helps me to regulate right now. That's me. And if you had told me at the beginning of COVID, that would be the thing that would be saving me, I would have laughed until I wept, right? But it's the truth. It is the truth. So we're going to look at it that way for our kiddos too. Everybody needs to feel safe, at least part of the day. We're not going to guarantee anybody, oh, you're going to feel safe all the time, because that's just not in the cards right now, right? Too much going on. But we want to have at least opportunities during the day to feel safe. And once we get that, then we can work on feeling safe in other environments with other things going on. Yeah? Okay, we're totally out of time. We're past time. Excuse me. Loved being with you here today. Love the opportunity to share with you guys. Love that I got to virtually talk about Saratoga. and my hometown. But tomorrow on the show, we have Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. And Nancy's going to be here with me. And we are going to have licensed marriage family therapist Vince Redmond is going to be here with us. But we also have a young researcher who's going to be here doing a very interesting study right now, research study, looking for families in the state of California to fill out a survey looking at disparity in IEPs based on zip code, financial circumstances, potentially race, right? Looking at how do some people get some services and other people don't? If you feel passionately about leveling that playing field and taking a look at who's getting services and who's not, join us tomorrow because she's going to tell us how you can participate. And it's this is a pretty intense research. It's just a little bit of your time. It's less than an hour of your time, but you will need to fill out a couple of different surveys for them. And so there is a gift card that you will earn as a result of doing this. It's only for folks in the state of California, although they're looking to do this in other states as well. So they're going to be taking interest from people who are in other states. So that's tomorrow too, along with Vince Redmond. And we'll also find some news stories for you that hopefully will be of interest to you. I just absolutely adore all of you. I also want to say to the person who reached out and said that they would love to have Barry Present on the show or reaching out. We've interviewed him before, but not technically. We've interviewed him at events and not technically in the show, but he said to us before in the past that he would be happy to be on the show. So we're reaching out. We love it when you request people, and we love telling them, we've had a request from a viewer that we would love to have you be on the show. And he is a wonderful, wonderful person in his book, Uniquely Human, very much in the line of everything we've been talking about this week. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.